Chapter 397. Far away in the sky, Chu Bei calmly looked at the cracked Jing Tian's clone. At that moment, his back was like a majestic sacred mountain in the eyes of the experts. He was an existence that needed to be worshipped. Especially the ghastly white sword in his hand. It emitted a chaotic glow while balls of light coiled around the body of the sword and flickered with talisman markings. Coupled with the boundless blood-colored rainstorm and the rumbling of thunder, it caused others to feel terrified and tremble. The scene in the distance was too shocking. On the battlefield, Jing Tian's clone's body dissipated, and a bloody rain fell. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and a strange phenomenon appeared. "Chen Nan, I'll give you another opportunity." Just as everyone was still immersed in the previous battle, Chu Bei cast his gaze on Chen Nan. As soon as his calm voice fell, Chu Bei shot out a ray of divine light that enveloped Chen Nan's body. After a while, the celestial demon diagram flew out from Chen Nan's body and quickly enlarged to thousands of feet. Then, like a giant mouth, it madly devoured the flesh and blood of Jing Tian's clone. During the process, one could faintly hear Jing Tian's clone's roar that was fading away. He wanted nothing more than to grind Chu Bei's bones into dust. Gradually, the battlefield quieted down. The celestial demon diagram that had devoured Jing Tian's clone returned to Chu Bei's body. The Kate's giant disappeared, and the white sword in Chu Bei's hand was nowhere to be found. Under everyone's gaze, Chu Bei stood with his hands behind his back and stepped on the void to land in front of Chen Nan. The godly kings and godly emperors, including Elder Nan Hai, immediately bowed to Chu Bei to show their respect. As expected of the expert. "Even Tian is no match for you. The expert is mighty. The most powerful expert in the world since ancient times." The purple-gold divine dragon and baby dragon immediately stepped forward and looked at Chu Bei with fawning expressions. "Master, when can I reach your level?" Chen Nan looked at Chu Bei with admiration. "If you want to catch up to me, it might not be a difficult matter. However, with the power to destroy the heavens, that day won't be too far away." Chu Bei's gaze swept across Chen Nan as he spoke. Hearing this, Chen Nan was stunned at first, then he nodded heavily. "I once told you that there is a heavens beyond heaven outside of the heavenly Tao. All of you are merely in a small world. The world beyond the 9 heavens is truly vast. As for your path of cultivation, it is still far from the end." Chu Bei continued. "Small world? The world beyond the 9 heavens!" Before Chen Nan could react, the primordial sovereign King He-Chi was the first to reveal a look of shock. Judging from the other party's tone, he naturally knew that the small world that the other party mentioned was not the current heaven realm, but the entire 6 realms. According to him, there was an even bigger world outside of the 6 realms. However, because of the existence of the 9 heavens, the vast world was blocked. Chu Bei glanced at He-Chi and said, "Your horizons are too narrow. Wait until I lead you to the 9 heavens and destroy the heavenly axiom. Then, you will have the opportunity to see the vast world from afar. You are very strong. However, the heavenly axiom is far more terrifying than you can imagine." Primordial Sovereign King He-Chi took a deep breath. After calming down, he looked at Chu Bei with a serious expression. "Do you think you've already seen through me?" Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. He-Chi was silent, and his expression was somewhat ugly. The truth was that when he tried to see through the person in front of him, the other party was like a cloud of fog, and he could not detect anything. The conversation between Chu Bei and He-Chi made Chen Nan frown slightly, as if he was thinking about something. After all, he had heard about the existence of the heavenly axiom over the years. On the other hand, the surrounding divine kings were confused, and they still did not know what was going on. "Master, then where are you going next? How are you going to destroy the heavenly axiom?" Chen Nan looked at Chu Bei. He did not even know where the heavenly axiom was. "Let's gather the primordial gods first." Chu Bei's lips moved slightly, and his indifferent voice floated in the air. The reason why he did this was to be on the safe side. After all, the heavenly axiom was not simple. "Since I am going to take action, no matter what you are planning, everything is meaningless. The destruction of the heavens is imminent, and you will follow me to be witnesses. In the sky above the collapsed Findu mountain range, Chubei's gaze swept across the surrounding people, and he muttered, "However, because there are too many people, please stay in my small world." "What do you mean? Are you going to learn from the demon lord?" Hearing Chubei's words, Heichi seemed to have guessed what was going to happen next, and his expression was somewhat unfriendly. "Perhaps the method is similar, but the purpose is different." Chubei shook his head, and his voice was cold and indifferent, without the slightest hint of emotion. "He is worried that experts of your level will disturb this world, and I want you to witness the destruction of the heavenly axiom." As his voice fell, Chubei pointed at the void, and a huge gap appeared. Inside the gap was a world filled with birds, flowers, and celestial aura. Mountains, rivers, the sun, and the moon were all there. "What right do you have to do this?" Primordial King Heichi glanced at the world inside the gap, and his expression was extremely ugly. He looked at Chubei with eyes full of anger. "You are like an ant in front of me." Chubei's hands were behind his back, and his face was expressionless. "You think you are invincible just because you destroyed a heaven clone? If my cultivation is restored to its peak, I can also cut it down." Meeting Chubei's contemptuous gaze, Heichi was furious, and he pointed in the direction where Qing Tian's clone had disappeared. "Go in, you won't be alone." Chubei looked at Heichi calmly, and did not say anything else. "What if I don't want to?" Primordial King Heichi snorted coldly, and demonic aura began to erupt from his body. Darkness instantly covered the surrounding sky, and the souls of the 400,000 gods and demons appeared, all roaring and shattering the void behind them. "That is not up to you. How dare you!" As soon as Chubei's emotionless voice faded, Heichi let out a shout, and the 400,000 indestructible souls of gods and devils behind him quickly gathered together, transforming into an incomparably ferocious and enormous devil. The demon roared angrily and took the lead to attack Chubei. It opened its ferocious bloody mouth, and a gloomy black fog came out of its mouth. Futile struggle. Just as the huge demon was about to swallow Chubei, a dazzling mass of chaotic divine light gushed out of Chubei's body, and it instantly shattered the ferocious demon. Chaotic light of calamity. As Chubei uttered another syllable, the mass of blazing divine light directly turned into a prison, covering Heichi's body. The next moment, a shocking and terrifying scene took place. King Heichi, who was trapped in the chaos prison, screamed in agony, and then his body turned into a pile of white bones in an instant. Before the surrounding king of gods could exclaim, the pile of white bones reformed and turned back into Heichi. However, under the effect of the chaos prison's light, he turned into a pile of white bones in an instant. Just like that, the primordial seven kings, Heichi, kept switching between life and death, falling into a cycle of life and death. The seemingly inconspicuous chaos prison seemed to have the power of time, and no matter how Heichi struggled, he could not escape from the trap. "Ah! Let me out!" As time passed, Heichi let out a miserable wail, as if he was suffering unbearable torture, and his originally powerful aura became increasingly weak. Witnessing the scene on the battlefield, the surrounding experts shrank their necks, and they looked at Chubei with fear in their eyes. The chaotic light of calamity in the prison was simply too terrifying, and it could make one repeat life and death over and over again. "Stop! I'm willing to go in." King Heichi kept wailing, and in the end, he even began to plead. Chubei glanced at Heichi nonchalantly, then waved his sleeve, and a ripple sent Heichi into the small world in the crack. "What? Do you want me to forcefully send you in as well?" Chubei glanced at Elder Nanhai and the others as he said nonchalantly. Chapter 398. Who disturbed my slumber? Suddenly, a huge demonic cloud gushed out from the towering mountain. The demonic cloud trembled like a raging sea. The appearance of the demonic cloud brought with it a vast and unparalleled spiritual pressure. Even though the purple-gold divine dragon and the dragon babies had reached the God-King realm, they still felt as if there was a huge mountain pressing down on their hearts. They felt as if their minds were about to collapse. Even Chen Nan, who had reached the heaven stage, felt an inexplicable pressure. Such a terrifying aura! Could it be that his cultivation has recovered? Chen Nan frowned slightly. He also released a spiritual pressure that enveloped Yusin and Shensi, helping them resist the pressure from the demonic cloud. But his appearance hasn't changed. He's still so ferocious. Gradually, the demonic cloud surged. When he saw the figure in the demonic cloud, Chen Nan muttered. The demonic cloud dispersed, and a tall and blurry figure gradually became clear. A head of blood-red hair fluttered freely. Half of the head under the blood-red hair was already smashed. The area above the left eye was a mess of flesh and blood. Red and white mixed together, and bits of brain matter stained the blood-red hair. The undamaged right eye had no white or pupil. The entire eyeball was extremely red and emitted a heart-palpitating blood-red light. What was even more terrifying was that there was a huge bloody hole in his chest. His heart was nowhere to be found, and it was emitting a blinding blood-red light. Looking at his back, half of the 12 wings were broken. It was extremely miserable. Too much time has passed. Do you not remember me? Chu Bei floated to the front of the nameless God-fiend. The corners of his mouth curled up, and there was a hint of a smile in his voice. It's you! The nameless God-fiend clearly recognized Chu Bei, and there was a hint of surprise in his voice. Looking at your condition, you should have recovered all your lost memories. Chu Bei looked at the nameless God-fiend calmly. Yes. May I know why you are here? The nameless God-fiend nodded and asked. Back then, your master sent experts above the heaven stage into the third realm. I'm sure you know about that. Chu Bei placed his hands behind his back and said leisurely. Although my purpose for coming here is different from his, I also want to invite you to my world for a chat. After saying that, Chu Bei pointed his finger and summoned the small world. What do you mean? The nameless fiend god's expression suddenly changed. I promised Master that I would guard this place and wait for him to come out of the third realm. There's no need to wait. I'll bring you to the third realm soon and let you see the Devil Master. Chu Bei was expressionless. He pointed at the small world and said, Go in. Is there no room for negotiation? The nameless God-fiend frowned as black clouds surged behind him, occupying half the sky. We have to go in. Chu Bei shook his head and gave the answer. Then, a wisp of chaotic light gushed out from his glabella. The chaotic light transformed into an arrow and whizzed out. With a swoosh, it swept away all the black clouds behind the nameless fiend god. The nameless fiend god's body trembled slightly. He let out a cold snort, then turned into a stream of black light and entered the small world. An expert is indeed an expert. You don't even need to give face to the ancient Devil Master. The purple gold divine dragon swung his dragon tail and flattered with a flattering face. Let's go to the next place. After putting the nameless God-fiend into the small world, Chu Bei raised his hand and shot out a golden light. He took Chen Nan and the others and disappeared into the void again. Forbidden land, eternal forest. At the center of the land was a body of water with no end in sight. The color of the water was very strange. It was blood-red, and the occasional water tornadoes were like ferocious beasts that wanted to devour people. It made people's hearts palpitate. Who is it? All of a sudden, a cold shout rang out. The blood-red water churned, and with a strange rumbling sound, a huge whirlpool appeared in the blood-red water. Then, a huge ancient palace slowly floated out of the whirlpool. The door of the ancient palace opened, and a series of heavy footsteps came from within. 7 tall figures walked out unhurriedly, their bodies shining with golden light and emitting a blazing divine light. These were 7 angels with 6 pairs of wings. Their wings were neither pure white nor black. Instead, they were a golden color that emitted a divine light, giving people a sense of holiness. Do you still recognize me? Chu Bei appeared above the blood-red water with Chen Nan and the others. He looked at the 7 angels calmly, his voice without the slightest trace of emotion. So it's you. When they saw the appearance of the person who came, the 7 powerful 12-winged angels were immediately shocked. The battle between the other party and the fake one back then had left a deep impression on them. At first, the 7 of them were the rulers of the eternal forest. However, during the battle between the ancient era and the Celestials, they suffered a Tao injury and fell into a deep sleep. Later on, the fake one occupied this part of the forest. It wasn't until that battle that they were awakened and deeply imprinted Chu Bei's appearance in their minds. My purpose for coming here is very simple. I want to invite the 7 of you to sit in my small world. As Chu Bei's indifferent voice fell, a small world appeared behind Chu Bei. Inside the small world, the nameless god fiend, immemorial sovereign King He Qi, and the others could be faintly seen. You want to imprison the 7 of us. The 7 12-winged angels reacted, their faces extremely gloomy. It's up to you to interpret it. Do you want to go in by yourselves, or do I have to forcibly send you in? Chu Bei said, his voice indifferent and carrying an irresistible majesty. You're going too far. Even when the Demon Lord came, he didn't threaten us like you did on account of our battle with the Celestials. The 7 12-winged angels angrily roared and then flapped their wings at the same time. A holy aura spread out. At the same time, the 7 of them waved their hands at the same frequency. Layers of blue light swept out from their palms and finally gathered to form a blue river. The blood-red lake below surged as if it was being pulled by the blue river. It actually turned into a tornado that soared into the sky and combined with the blue river. Whoosh! Under the frightening momentum, the forest seemed to be fixed in place. The void was shattered and rumbled. Looking at the surging blue river, Chu Bei's face didn't change at all. He didn't dodge or evade. With a wave of his hand, the endless primal chaos in front of him surged and condensed into an incomparably huge fist. Rumble! Amidst the loud noise, the fist easily shattered the blue river. Then, the fist turned into a palm. Under the horrified gazes of the 7 12-winged angels, the palm firmly grasped them. At this moment, the 7 12-winged angels were flustered. The guy in front of them was even more powerful than they had imagined. From the beginning, the 7 of them had worked together to unleash their strongest moves, but in the eyes of the other party, they were still unable to withstand a single blow. Let us go. Anxious voices came from the mouths of the 7 angels, but before they could struggle, they were thrown into the small world by Chu Bei. Master, where's the next stop? Chen Nan was curious. Cemetery of Gods and Devils. Chu Bei's lips moved slightly. Cemetery of Gods and Devils? There are only tombs there. Chen Nan was puzzled. Other than tombs, there's also a living person. Chu Bei smiled. Master, you're talking about the old man guarding the tomb. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Chen Nan seemed to have thought of something. Chu Bei didn't say anything else. His figure turned into a rainbow and left the eternal forest. Tianyuan Continent, Central Region. Cemetery of Gods and Devils. The tall snow maples had lush branches and green leaves. Between the branches and leaves were countless snow-white petals. They were like snowflakes blooming in the hot summer, releasing a refreshing fragrance. At a glance, tombs could be seen in every corner of the cemetery. I haven't been here for a few years, but this place hasn't changed. Above the Cemetery of Gods and Devils, Qin Nan walked out of the void behind Chu Bei. Looking at the group of tombstones below, he sighed. At the periphery of the cemetery, tall snow maples were neatly arranged. The dark green branches and leaves were lush. Under the swaying of the breeze, the pure white petals drifted in the air like snowflakes. Brother, it smells so good. Little Qin Shi had an intoxicated expression as the fragrance of the flowers assailed his nostrils. I knew you would come. At this moment, an old voice drifted in the air. Following the voice, in front of the straw hut, a skinny old man stood at the door. Both of his hands were leaning on a walking stick as he walked toward him shakily. The old man's hair and beard were white, and his face was engraved with weathered wrinkles. His skinny figure was frightening, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. Do you still remember what I said to you when I first came? Chu Bei looked at the old man calmly and said indifferently. Cause because of you, effect because of you. The old man looked at Chu Bei. So, you're going to make a move? But why are you here? My old bones can't take the torment. Maybe there's a place where you can be of use. This time, I'm here to invite you to my small world to recuperate. The corners of Chu Bei's mouth curved into a smile. With a wave of his right hand, a small world was brought out of the opening. Hearing Chu Bei's words and looking at the small world, the old man's eyes instantly became cold and fierce. His slightly rising aura oppressed the void with a sizzling sound, and strange phenomena appeared behind him. Do you want to make a move? Sensing the old man's rising aura, Chu Bei's voice was indifferent and emotionless. If you insist on this old man entering your small world, then give it a try. The old man was not afraid. Then turn into the life and death wheel. Chu Bei's eyes narrowed, and his voice suddenly became low. Hearing this, the old man's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He did not expect this guy in front of him to see through his true body. Rumble! Amidst a series of loud noises, the old man's skinny body instantly enlarged thousands of times. Then, a huge wheel appeared in the sky above the graveyard of gods and devils, releasing an incomparably terrifying aura. It was also at this moment that waves of roars came from the depths of the cemetery. The terrifying roars of gods and demons seemed to connect heaven and earth, reaching the 6 paths of the 3 realms. Roar! The soul-stirring roar was like an evil spirit from hell that was about to rush out of its cage. The earth rumbled and trembled continuously. The souls of the dead gods and demons that had not dissipated seemed to be about to rush out. The entire graveyard of gods and devils was in an uproar. Chapter 399. I didn't expect this old fellow to be so terrifying. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Looking at the life and death wheel in the sky and the phenomenon in the cemetery, the purple gold divine dragon shrunk his neck as his expression changed. Chen Nan was also shocked. Although he knew from the beginning that the gravekeeper old man was no ordinary person, he didn't expect him to be so terrifying. The aura released by the gravekeeper old man was even stronger than the nameless god fiend. Perhaps even in the primordial era of the gods, he would be one of the top existences. As for Chu Bei, his expression didn't change at all. His body slowly rose into the air, and his entire body was wrapped in the chaotic fog, gradually giving off an ethereal feeling that it was difficult to capture. Vaguely, one could see the silhouette of the iron lump in the chaotic fog. As the iron lump and Chu Bei merged, the latter's body emitted a majestic energy fluctuation with a desolate aura, as if it had existed since ancient times. An aura of time that seemed to be able to affect the flow of time was vast and mighty like a vast ocean, surging out violently with waves rising and falling. Looking at Chu Bei's aura in the sky, which had changed once again, Chen Nan's heart was in turmoil. As Chu Bei released a vast aura, Chen Nan keenly felt the changes in his body. The God-fiend diagram in his body actually started to slowly rotate with a strange rhythm. Buzz buzz buzz. In the sky above the graveyard of gods and devils, 2 colossal beings that were hundreds of thousands of feet tall faced each other. The wheel was black and white, and it carried the aura of life and death respectively. As it slowly rotated, the millions of tombstones in the cemetery trembled, and the cries of ghosts made one's heart palpitate. As the iron lump and Chu Bei merged, the primordial qi and primordial qi transformed into a taiji diagram that exploded with resplendent light. Various phenomena formed by the interweaving of chaotic light could be seen. The sky collapsed, and cracks in the void spread. Under the gazes of Chen Yu Xian, and the rest, the 2 colossal beings started to close in on each other. Chi chi chi. The black and white energies on the wheel transformed into a dragon snake that rushed out with a roar. Its ferocious bloody mouth expanded to the limit, and it actually wanted to swallow Chu Bei in one gulp. At some point in time, a spear formed by the interweaving of chaotic light appeared in Chu Bei's hand, and with a swish, it directly killed the dragon snake. Do you really want to force my hand? A calm voice came out from the chaotic light fog, echoing in the sky. Rumble. The black and white qi dispersed, and the life and death plates spun faster and faster. Forget it. I can't defeat you, and I don't want to injure myself. I'll go with you. The aura of the life and death plate became more and more terrifying, and soon reached its peak. However, just when it was supposed to be a fight to the death, the gravekeeper old man's unresigned sigh came from the life and death plate, and it seemed to carry some helplessness. In the next moment, under the gazes of Chin Nan and the purple gold divine dragon, the life and death plate kept shrinking until it finally returned to the appearance of the gravekeeper elder. Almost at the same time, the chaotic fog outside Chu Bei's body dissipated. After that, Chu Bei, who stood with his hands behind his back, descended from the sky with a calm and composed appearance. You've just started and you're already admitting defeat? Can't you act more like an expert? The purple gold divine dragon pursed his lips and looked at the gravekeeper old man with disdain. Chen Nan looked at the gravekeeper old man with a strange gaze, as if redefining the latter's character. I'd like to see how many people you can invite into your small world. The gravekeeper old man threw away the walking stick in his hand and let out a cold snort. It was not difficult to hear the resentment he had for Chu Bei. Don't worry, as long as it's above the heaven rank, none of them will be able to escape, including the third realm. Chu Bei looked calmly at the gravekeeper old man and then pointed at the small world in the gap. His meaning was obvious. Then I'd like to see if I can wait for the demon lord inside. The gravekeeper old man narrowed his eyes. Not only him, but all the old friends you want to see will be there. Chu Bei smiled. I hope your strength is as great as your words. The gravekeeper old man waved his sleeve and flew into the small world in the gap angrily. Dugu Xiaoxian, do you think you can escape from under my nose? Suddenly, Chu Bei looked to the west and calmly said. Then, he waved his hand and sent out a gorgeous ripple. Wherever the ripple passed, the sky was instantly imprisoned, and then a woman's figure floated out. The woman was dressed in a purple robe. She was elegant and had an aura of lightness about her. It's really been a long time. I didn't expect Senior to be so much stronger than I imagined. Even the life and death plate is no match for you. Dugu Xiaoshuan's bell-like laughter resounded through the graveyard of gods and devils. Her clear and melodious voice was like the sound of nature. Do you want to go in by yourself, or do you want me to send you in? Chu Bei pointed at the small world and glanced indifferently at Dugu Xiaoxian. Senior, how can you force me to enter your small world? I still have to find my father. You can't do this to me. In a few steps, Dugu Xiaoxian had already arrived beside Chu Bei and shook Chu Bei's arm with a fawning expression. Regarding Chu Bei's request, the peerless goddess Dugu Xiaoxian was obviously very unwilling and angry, but she knew the strength of the gravekeeper old man. Even the gravekeeper old man was forced to enter the small world, so with her strength, she couldn't do anything in front of Chu Bei. Tens of thousands of years have passed, and you still haven't found him. In my opinion, it's better to go to my small world and sit for a while. With me taking action, you father and daughter will soon meet. After saying that, Chu Bei's eyes narrowed, and his expression was incomparably cold, not caring about any feelings. It seems you don't intend to make an exception. But I'm not as cowardly as the gravekeeper old man. Even if I can't beat him, I still have to fight. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Dugu Xiaoshuan's face immediately became gloomy, and her face changed faster than flipping a book. Do you think this is meaningful? The corners of Chu Bei's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. Reversal of yin and yang, return to chaos, immemorial demon sealing curse. Immemorial demon sealing seal! Dugu Xiaoxian let out a cold snort, and then coldly spat out the words from her mouth. In the next moment, countless curse and seal characters inexplicably surged out from the graveyard of gods and devils, and with a buzzing sound, suppressed Chu Bei. Chu Bei shook his head and didn't say anything. He just raised his hand and clapped, and a resplendent chaotic giant palm surged out from his palm. Chi! Chi! In the blink of an eye, the chaotic giant palm slapped out countless characters. Then, the giant palm easily grabbed Dugu Xiaoxian and threw her into the small world. You despicable guy! Let me out quickly! Soon, Dugu Xiaoshuan's flustered and exasperated roar came from the small world, but it soon disappeared. Tianyuan Continent, Church of Light. Underground, 13 layers of hell. In the pitch-black world of darkness, one couldn't see anything clearly. In particular, the dense killing intent in the air gave people a gloomy and terrifying feeling. However, with the arrival of Chu Bei and the others, the darkness was instantly dispersed by the holy light element, and in the blink of an eye, it was bright. Looking around, this place was vast and boundless, like a boundless prairie, except that the grass was black. Another prey is coming! Suddenly, a mournful howl came from the depths of the prairie. In just a moment, a man covered in blood-red light stood in the distant sky, looking disdainfully in all directions, and howling continuously. The man's blood-red hair was disheveled, and his half-exposed upper body was covered in demonic patterns. As for his lower body, it wasn't his legs, but the tail of a giant snake, which was 20 to 30 feet long. The most peculiar thing was that in the center of his forehead, which was covered in demonic patterns, there was an additional vertical eye, which was extremely strange. The aura of the Western totem has also become much stronger. It seems that it's not far from its peak. Feeling the aura released by the Western totem, Qin Nan's pupils suddenly shrank. It's you guys. Seeing the appearance of Chu Bei and the others, the Western totem's body trembled slightly. I'm about to destroy the heavens, and I need you to bear witness. Chu Bei went straight to the point, and at the same time, brought out the small world. I can't leave here yet. When the day comes, I'll go. You can go. As soon as he finished speaking, the Western totem turned around and was about to leave. However, just as he was about to bury himself deep underground to recuperate, an extremely terrifying spiritual wave came from behind him. It felt like he was being targeted by a hunter, and his heart trembled inexplicably. Do you have to be so aggressive? The Western totem turned around to look at Chu Bei, and suddenly howled into the sky. His blood-red hair danced in the wind, and the demonic patterns on his body emitted an even more dazzling demonic light. At the same time, the third vertical eye on his forehead shot out a pitch-black beam of light. What? Do you think you can fight me just because you've recovered your cultivation? Chu Bei's voice was indifferent. His figure disappeared directly, and he appeared directly above the Western totem. Immediately, Chu Bei's right palm slammed down, and a circle of light formed by chaotic light condensed in front of his palm. To be precise, it was a bottomless light hole. The Western totem frowned, and the divine eye in the center of his forehead shot out a pitch-black beam of light. After bombarding the light hole that looked like the mouth of a giant demon, it quickly melted and then disappeared completely. To be more precise, it was absorbed by the light hole. As expected, it's still useless. The Western totem closed his third vertical eye, as if he had accepted his fate, and allowed the chains made of chaotic light to bind him and throw him into the small world. Split! After inviting the Western totem into the small world, Chu Bei shouted, and countless rays of chaotic light turned into clones and flew away in different directions. For Chu Bei at this moment, a distance of thousands of miles was just a blink of an eye. Soon, one of the clones returned, followed by a young man with a murderous aura. Who's disturbing my sleep? The young man was known as the Purple Cloud Taoist, and he had participated in the War of Annihilation in the Primordial Age. He had a head of purple hair, and his eyes were like lightning. He glanced coldly at Chu Bei and the others. I'd like to invite you into the small world. Chu Bei didn't say much, and the giant palm of chaos covered him directly. Blazing golden light flashed, and the Purple Cloud Taoist ancestor was sent into the world seed. After a while, another clone returned. Behind him was an ice coffin, and one could vaguely see a figure lying in it. In addition, there was a middle-aged man with blood-red hair who followed closely behind. A wave of demonic energy rushed out of the exit, and a tall figure was slapped into a small world. In the Du family in the mortal world, a majestic aura was vast and mighty. The heavenly demon head was forced to wake up from its slumber, and a giant claw of chaos grabbed it without warning and disappeared. In the western heaven realm, a loud dragon roar spread across the west earth, and a heavenly dragon flew across the sky. However, as soon as the dragon roar sounded, a figure wrapped in chaos appeared and punched it into the small world. Chapter 400. What's going on? Is there another upheaval? Who is that person? Those people who were captured are all recorded in the ancient books. I didn't expect them to still be alive and right beside us. Boss Chu. He's Chen Nan's master. What is he trying to do by capturing these ancient gods? All the cultivators of the 5 realms were horrified as they discussed the unbelievable scene that they had witnessed. Master, is there anything else? As evening approached, Chen Nan let out a long sigh. He looked at Chu Bei and asked tentatively. The purple gold divine dragon and the baby dragons, who had witnessed this scene from beginning to end, were in a daze. They looked at Chu Bei with even more admiration. Those were all the Heaven Stage Great Ascension Stage powerhouses in the 5 realms who were all famous in the ancient books, but they had all been captured by one person. The Heaven Stage Great Ascension Stage powerhouses left behind by the Demon Lord have all come to visit me. Chu Bei smiled. Let's go to the 3rd realm. The 3rd realm? Chen Nan murmured with furrowed brows. Unlike the other 5 realms, the 3rd realm had mysteriously disappeared after the Primordial War. There were no records of it in the ancient books of later generations, so no one knew of its specific existence. What was even more terrifying was that it was said that the 3rd realm was a terrifying world where it was easy to enter but difficult to leave. It was not because the barrier of this world was impenetrable, but because this world was overseen by the Demon Lord. Before the time was right, no primordial gods were allowed to leave. It was extremely domineering. Actually, the 3rd realm is the 18th level of hell, Chu Bei said calmly as he pointed below. What? The 18th level of hell? Chen Nan was shocked. Just as he was about to continue asking, he saw Chu Bei shoot out a wisp of chaotic light. In the next moment, the scene before everyone's eyes changed. The 18th level of hell was the 3rd realm. It was a boundless and mysterious land with dark clouds in the sky. As soon as they entered this space, Chen Nan, Yu Xian, and the others could clearly feel their bodies trembling. This was not fear or dread, but an ancient aura that had not dissipated for a long time. He could feel that this was the place of true experts. In this boundless land, not a single blade of grass could be seen within 1,000 li. The black and red earth seemed to have been soaked in blood. Demonic clouds hung low, and an ancient aura surged. Rumble! Suddenly, accompanied by a loud roar, the earth trembled. An enormous creature rushed over from the distance. It was like a mountain peak, shaped like a lion, but not a lion. The gigantic creature was covered in yellowish-brown scales. It roared and pounced towards Chen Nan with its mouth wide open. Chen Nan glanced at the gigantic creature, then slashed out 1,000-foot-long golden beam of light. Clang! Amidst the dazzling golden light, a deep ravine appeared on the ground. However, the huge creature wasn't split in half. It merely rolled away. A hint of surprise rose in Chen Nan's eyes. He had already stepped into the ranks of a heaven-rank expert, and he even had the talent of light. Yet, he actually failed to kill this ferocious beast with a heavy blow. Is this the 3rd realm? Sure enough, it's not a place where ordinary people can stay. Chen Nan sighed. Roar! The gigantic creature rushed over again. Chen Nan gathered his strength, but this time, before he could attack, a halberd formed from chaotic light swept out from beside him. It exploded with a fierce aura and swept towards the ferocious beast in an instant. Instantly, a bloody light flashed, and the smell of blood filled the air. The ferocious beast fell to the ground with a rumble, split in half. Looking at the ferocious beast's corpse, Chen Nan looked at Chu Bei. The chaos in the latter's palm had yet to dissipate. Rumble! Master, there are people fighting in front! Hearing the commotion in the distance, Chen Nan exclaimed. Chu Bei nodded and immediately brought Chen Nan and the others to the central region of the 3rd realm. As far as the eye could see, this place had already become a ghastly battlefield. Bloody light soared into the sky, and countless shouts of killing made the earth tremble. Demonic clouds were vast and mighty in the dusky sky. In the battlefield, a stalwart figure covered in blood stood in the sky in the middle of the sky. In the chaotic battle, more than a dozen corpses lay at his feet, and blood flowed freely. They are all heaven staged powerhouses. Looking at the corpses emitting bloody light at the stalwart figure's feet, Chen Nan's expression suddenly changed. Even though those people were already dead, the aura left on the corpses was still far stronger than his. Obviously, these people who were killed were terrifying existences who had already stepped into the heaven stage. Ancient Demon Master! It was also at this moment that a series of exclamations came from the small world floating beside Chu Bei, filled with astonishment. In the battlefield, the gigantic divine demon diagram above the stalwart figure was so dazzling that it was like an extremely dazzling cloud covering the sky. It's the same divine demon diagram! Chen Nan was extremely shocked. It was the same divine demon diagram, but the Demon Master's divine demon diagram was far more powerful and terrifying than his. In this vast land, only I, the Demon Master, am in charge. Thinking of the Demon Master, one would naturally think of this ancient saying, which had once intimidated the first demon of the primordial age. His power could be said to be unprecedented, and in this vast land, it was difficult to find a match. In his heyday, all the gods of the primordial age retreated, and his strength was connected to the 6 realms, and no one could compare to his boldness. At this moment, half of the Demon Master's white hair was dyed red with blood, and his eyes were as cold as the edge of a blade. He stood in the azure battlefield, and for a moment, no one dared to approach him. Sensing the arrival of Chu Bei and the others, the Demon Master only glanced at them indifferently, and then shouted, "Time God, Space God, come out! Don't send people to their deaths. Today I will completely settle this with you and seek justice for your master. Demon Master, you overestimate yourself!" Following a cold snort, 2 figures suddenly appeared on the battlefield. It was the Time God and Space God. Is the Demon Master going to fight with the 2 ancestral gods? More and more heaven-stage powerhouses flew over from afar, nervously looking at the 3 figures in the battlefield who had become the target of public criticism. This space-time brat has taught 2 good disciples. They can even do something like deceiving their master. The gravekeeper old man's mocking voice came from the small world. Chu Bei glanced at the Time God and Space God. In the battle between the primordial age and the heaven stage, the Time God was seriously injured, and in the end, his 2 disciples sneak attacked and took away the Time Heart and Space Heart. Time stop! The Time God stared coldly at the Demon Master and attacked with the power of origin. In an instant, the water around the Demon Master rippled, and the world was silent, as if everything had stopped at this moment for eternity. Return to void space! The Space God also shouted, and then the space around the Demon Master collapsed, as if it was about to return to its original state, turning into a dark and empty land. Compared to your master, this little ability is simply far inferior. The Demon Master was not swallowed by the silent darkness, nor was he frozen. His hands danced, and a terrifying energy fluctuation spread out. In the next moment, the void around the Demon Master shattered like exquisite porcelain. At the same time, monstrous demonic flames surged out from the celestial demon diagram, and tens of thousands of demonic shadows condensed behind the Demon Master, roaring wildly. Time God, I will help you clean up your sect today! The Demon Master's voice was incomparably cold, and supreme pressure spread throughout the 3rd realm. You are just a remnant soul. Do you really think we are afraid of you? The Time God and Space God looked at each other, and roared at the same time. Time reversal slash! Space shattering slash! The Time God and Space God joined forces and attacked again. The Demon Master snorted coldly, and monstrous demonic aura surged, and his roar shook the sky. The terrifying power really had the ability to swallow mountains and rivers. In the endless rolling demonic clouds, huge black shadows gathered and slowly formed. Those were the broken souls of war that had been floating between heaven and earth since the primordial age. Layers of war souls were constantly condensing. Sensing this pressure, the expressions of the god of time and god of space instantly changed. Since the primordial age, countless powerhouses had died in the third realm, and they were all powerhouses above the heaven stage. Among them, there were many people who intimidated the six paths. Right now, the demon master was using his unparalleled demonic technique, and countless demonic souls were coming to him. Rumble! Amidst the loud rumbling, as the demon master waved his palm, countless war souls condensed into a huge black shadow. Crack! The huge black shadow waved its demonic claws, and with just one strike, it shattered the second destructive attack of the time god and space god. Roar! With a demonic roar, the 18 levels of hell trembled. The demon master carried the billowing demonic aura and charged toward the time god and space god. Kill! The time god and space god's faces were ferocious, and they became crazy. The three figures fought fiercely, and many heaven stage powerhouses who were watching the battle were excited. However, the situation quickly became one-sided. The demon master was simply too strong. The god of time and the god of space continued to bleed. Roar! Countless war souls condensed into a huge demonic shadow, and it swallowed the heavens and earth. It opened its huge mouth and pounced toward the time god and space god. No! No! Finally, the time god and space god were terrified, and fear appeared in their eyes. Stop, they still have some use. However, just as the two ancestral gods were about to be swallowed by the demonic shadow, a calm and indifferent voice floated into the battlefield. It was also at this moment that the 18 levels of hell trembled violently again. An endless terrifying power enveloped the entire dark red land in an instant. Immediately after, a huge net made of chaotic fog appeared out of thin air and wrapped around the demonic shadow. With a swish, the huge net was like a sharp blade, and it cut the demonic shadow into pieces. In an instant, the battlefield fell silent. Under the gaze of hundreds and thousands of heaven-stage powerhouses, an unfamiliar figure landed lightly in front of the demon master. The demon master's attack was actually blocked. Who is he? He actually dares to interfere with the demon master's matters. Even in the primordial age, not many people had such guts. Could it be that he is a helper invited by the time god and space god? How many people in this world can stand shoulder to shoulder with the demon master? Those people are all existences that have shocked both ancient and modern times. Why is there no record of him? The gazes of the heaven-rank powerhouses fell on Chu Bei with shock and bewilderment. Chapter 401. I remember you. The demon lord's gaze landed on Chu Bei as he said indifferently. I can sense the aura of an old friend from your body. You are referring to them, right? Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. He snapped his fingers, and a door opened in the small world behind him. Through the door, one could clearly see the scene in the small world. There were thousands of people in the small world. Apart from the initial few god kings, the rest all had terrifying auras. Heaven stage, Mahayana! How can it be? Who is he? Sensing the auras of thousands of people in the small world seed, the heaven stage experts around the battlefield exclaimed. Their expressions froze as they stared at Chu Bei in disbelief. Demon Master, time flies. We meet again. You are still the same, and your power has not decreased. The Great Keeper Elder appeared at the edge of the small world. He could not come out, and could only sigh through the barrier. Master! The nameless god demon called out softly, his huge eyes turning red. Demon Master, you are a liar! Back then, you tricked the 7 of us into killing Chang Tian. Where is the promised reward? The primordial king Heichi roared at the demon master with rage. Uncle Demon Master, you are indeed still alive! Then my father, where is he? I miss him. Dugu Xiaoshuan's voice was trembling. She placed her hands on the door of the small world and waited for the demon master's answer. The moment Chu Bei manifested the small world, those who had interacted with the demon master before greeted him. You imprisoned them! The demon master looked at Chu Bei expressionlessly. His eyes were filled with anger, and his voice was cold. Not only them, but all of you have to follow me on the path to heaven. Chu Bei looked at the demon master calmly with his hands behind his back. You did not participate in the primordial war. How would you know how terrifying the heavenly Tao is? The demon master's gaze met Chu Bei's, and he snorted coldly. All the deities gathered for that battle and made ample preparations, but in the end, they only managed to reach the 8th heaven. They didn't even see the heavenly Tao true body. Look at the present. Those who are dead, those who are crippled, and those who are reincarnating are reincarnating. What can we use to fight the heavenly Tao? It's not time yet. Are you going to throw your life away? At the end of his speech, the demon lord directly let out a shout. This should be the second time we've met. Chu Bei looked at the devil lord with a smile. You don't believe me? Chaotic yin and yang, illusory void flower. The devil master did not reply. Instead, he spat out 8 terrifying demonic sounds. In an instant, the situation on the battlefield changed. A series of pitch-black flowers appeared out of thin air, releasing enchanting pollen. In the strange sound that seemed to come from hell, the void on the battlefield became distorted under the rise and fall of the pitch-black flower. It was dreamy and illusory. Just as the powerful force was about to corrode Chu Bei, the tiny iron lump figure hovered above Chu Bei's head. As it spun, the chaotic fog surged out like a river and met the millions of black flowers head-on. Boom! With a loud bang, the hearts of all the heaven stage experts around the battlefield suddenly trembled. It was as if they had inexplicably suffered a tyrannical blow. Their blood and chi surged, and their divine soul and body were about to be separated. When they came back to their senses, the group of heaven stage experts looked at the battlefield again. The black flowers and the chaotic river had disappeared, leaving only the devil master and the mysterious person facing each other in the distance. Although the collision between the two was fleeting, the group of experts knew that just a moment ago, 2 supreme laws had collided. Because for a moment, they had witnessed the collapse of the sky on the battlefield, and the terrifying energy that was about to spread and collapse the third realm. However, the aftermath of the collision was immediately controlled by the two of them, so it did not cause the collapse of the third realm. In the Divine Tomb Plains cultivation system, above the heaven stage was the heaven-defying stage, corresponding to the system's level 16. It was equivalent to a quasi-emperor powerhouse in the shrouded sky plane. The ancient devil master was the heaven-defying stage. As for Chu Bei, with the support of Xiao Hei's power, he had already stepped into level 17. Who won between the two of them just now? They were evenly matched? It should be the mysterious person who was defeated. After all, his opponent is the devil master who has been intimidating for thousands of years. The group of heaven stage powerhouses stared blankly at Chu Bei and the devil master, their brows filled with deep surprise and confusion. Their realm was not high enough, so they could not judge the result of such a collision between supreme laws. The heavenly Tao is far more terrifying than you think. On the battlefield, the devil master's body trembled slightly, and his breathing was a little chaotic. He was still expressionless. Chu Bei smiled and did not answer. Instead, he turned and walked toward the god of time and god of space. Thank you for saving us, friend. Seeing Chu Bei walk over, the god of time and god of space immediately cupped their fists and thanked him. You two ambushers do deserve to die, but you won't die here, Chu Bei said faintly. What do you mean? Hearing Chu Bei's words, the god of time and god of space's faces immediately darkened. Key of time! Space all! The next moment, the two ancestral gods shouted loudly. Their hands glowed brightly, and a terrifying ancient aura spread out. However, before they could take out their treasures, 2 sharp claws evolved from chaos suddenly appeared in front of their chests. Chi! The sharp claws easily pierced through the bodies of the god of time and god of space and took out their hearts that were full of vitality. Ah! With their hearts taken out, the god of time and god of space's expressions instantly turned hideous, and they let out shrill and painful screams. Go inside and stay there first. When Chu Bei's indifferent voice fell, the sharp claws swept across and slapped the god of time and god of space into the small world with a bang. Two ancestral gods can't even fight back in front of him. Could he be in existence from the primordial era? The group of heaven stage powerhouses was even more shocked, as if they could not believe what they had just seen. Let the primordial gods return. After dealing with the god of time and god of space, Chu Bei's gaze fell on the Devil Master. How confident are you? After the short exchange earlier, the Devil Master's attitude towards Chu Bei had clearly changed. I never do things that I'm not confident in. The corners of Chu Bei's mouth rose slightly, forming a slight arc. Looking at Chu Bei's calm and composed appearance, the Devil Master fell silent. After a long time, Reincarnation Gate, open! The Devil Master finally made a decision. With a loud shout, the God-Fiend diagram above his head went berserk, spewing out a strange light. Billions of souls roared in the light, carrying a high-spirited battle intent. It was also at this moment that the group of heaven stage powerhouses felt an inexplicable pressure. A door slowly appeared in the strange light, exuding an ancient aura. Gods, return! The Devil Master's voice once again drifted from the 18 levels of hell. A moment later, the Reincarnation Gate was dazzling and resplendent, and a faintly discernible ancient battle song sounded. Cultivate my battle sword, kill to the 9 heavens, sprinkle my hot blood, advance courageously. The ancient battle song became clearer and clearer until it spread to every corner of the 18 levels of hell, revealing an indomitable battle intent. What is the Devil Master doing? Is the world going to change? Almost all the heaven stage powerhouses in the 18 levels of hell stepped into this realm after the primordial war, so they were at a loss. On the contrary, the auras of the heaven stage powerhouses in Chu Bei's small world rose fiercely the moment they heard the battle song, and a terrifying battle intent soared. Devil Master, is the time ripe? These old bones of mine haven't slept enough. Suddenly, an illusory voice sounded in everyone's ears, and then they saw a figure walking out of the Reincarnation Gate. It was not a human, it was a snow-white skeleton. Wraith Lord, someone has messed up your game of chess. Seeing the snow-white skeleton, the Devil Master laughed as if he had seen an old friend. Ghost Master? Could it be the Netherworld Ghost Master of the Six Path Masters? A supreme existence on par with the Devil Master. He's actually still alive. Hearing the Devil Master's name for the skeleton, the group of heaven stage powerhouses was stunned at first, then seemed to think of something, and their faces were full of shock. Was he forced to bring it forward? The Ghost Master's body flickered, and flesh grew out, and he grew a beard and hair, transforming into a middle-aged man. At the same time, his aura continued to rise, and soon reached a level where he could compete with the Devil Master. Rumble! The Reincarnation Gate was still trembling. Under everyone's gaze, another tall figure walked out of the gate. Dugu Beitian. The moment the tall figure appeared, a uniform exclamation sounded in Chu Bei's small world. It had to be said that even if some people had disappeared for countless years, when their names were mentioned again, they could still shock everyone. Crack! The tall figure stood in front of the Reincarnation Gate, and his gaze swept across the people below, finally stopping on Jinan. Dugu Baiqian's name shook the world, and he was a supreme existence in the eyes of cultivators. He was like a monument standing on the path of cultivation, and all the latecomers would worship him. So he's still alive. The primordial taboo god, an existence that even the heavens are unwilling to mention. What is the chess game that the Devil Master is talking about? Is it related to the primordial war? The group of heaven-tier experts looked at Dugu Beitian in horror, their faces filled with disbelief. What's going on, Devil Master? He clearly hasn't grown up yet. Dugu Beitian sized up Jinan, frowned, and looked at the Devil Master. Fa Father. Dugu Shaoxian lay at the edge of the gate, staring at Dugu Beitian as tears rolled down her cheeks. Chu Bei glanced at the Reincarnation Gate, then waved his sleeve, and the barrier binding the small world disappeared. Dugu Xiaoxian turned into a streak of light and threw herself into Dugu Baiqian's arms. Rumble! At this time, the light from the reincarnation gate became even more dazzling, and one figure after another walked out. Devil Master, has the final battle arrived? This day has finally come. I hate it. I haven't recovered to my peak yet. I also need some time. If only I could have another 100 years. My Xian is back. More and more figures walked out of the reincarnation gate and hovered in the air, their faces filled with excitement. I didn't expect the primordial gods to still be alive. Where have they been hiding all these years? Why did they do all this? When they saw the figures in front of the reincarnation gate, the group of heaven-tier experts gaped, not daring to believe what they were seeing. Who would have thought that these fellows who should have been dead were still alive? Devil Master, Great God Dugu, these are the remains of the Time God. Do you have a way to revive him? One of the primordial gods held a pile of bones in his hands, but before the Devil Master and Dugu Baiqian could speak, Chu Bei threw out the 2 hearts in his hands. When the hearts were less than 3 meters away, the bones moved inexplicably, releasing sparkling light. Then they separated from the primordial god and formed a nearly perfect skeleton. The primordial gods looked at Chu Bei in surprise as they watched the bones fuse with the 2 hearts. Boom! After a long while, energy surged out like a volcanic eruption. The bones and flesh were reborn, and a white-haired old man gradually took shape. The primordial gods were extremely excited. Ha ha! This old man is finally alive! The white-haired old man threw his head back and laughed, then looked around. Where are those 2 bastards? It really is the Time God! He's alive! Back then, if he hadn't destroyed his cultivation to open a path for us to escape, I'm afraid we would have died in the truest sense of the word. Looking at the white-haired old man in high spirits, the old friends of the Time God were so excited that they couldn't speak. Time God, your 2 disciples have been taken away by him. He also helped you retrieve your heart. The Devil Master pointed at Chu Bei and said to the white-haired old man, An unfamiliar aura. Who is he? The space-time god frowned as he looked at Chu Bei, a puzzled expression on his face. A spoiler. It's because of him that I let you return in advance. He wants to lead the destruction of the heavenly Tao. A spoiler? Hearing the Devil Master's words, not just the Time God, but all the primordial gods were stunned. They all stared at Chu Bei in shock. Chapter 402. All of you were seriously injured in the battle with Tian and have yet to recover. It's also difficult for your cultivation to reach its peak. Since all of you don't have enough time, I'll give you another 5,000 years. Chu Bei stood with his hands behind his back and calmly swept his gaze across the group of experts. He waved his sleeve as soon as he finished speaking. Buzz! With a roar, a huge blue intersecting wheel appeared. At the top of the wheel, the words, Space-Time Wheel, were particularly eye-catching. With the support of Blackie's power, Chu Bei's strength had increased tremendously. He could also mobilize the space-time wheel and control the flow of time. Give us 5,000 years? What does that mean? The space-time god frowned. You'll know when you go in. Chu Bei glanced at the space-time god and said nothing. He raised his hand and shot out a ray of golden light, slapping the space-time god into the space-time wheel. The flow of time has changed. Space seems to have frozen as well. His control of space-time is probably above mine. Soon, the space-time god noticed the abnormality and walked to the entrance of the space-time wheel in surprise. He was excited and looked at Chu Bei in disbelief. This is the space-time wheel. One day in the outside world is 5,000 years in it. All of you go in. Chu Bei took the lead and threw the primordial gods in his small world into the space-time wheel. After a while, all kinds of excited cheers came from the space-time wheel. It was as if they had found a new continent. He still has terrifying means. Seeing this, The primordial gods summoned by the demon master hesitated for a moment before flying into the space-time wheel one after another. Master, can I go in? Chen Nan was tempted. Of course. Chu Bei glanced at Chen Nan and nodded slightly. Chen Nan was delighted and immediately pulled Yu Xian, Catherine, and the others into the space-time wheel. Chen Nan, you still have us! The purple gold divine dragon and the baby dragons shouted and followed closely behind. Dugu Beitian did not say anything, but there was a strange expression on his face. After sizing up Chu Bei again, he also jumped into the space-time wheel. Many thanks! The demon lord did not say much. After nodding slightly at Chu Bei, the celestial demon diagram entered his body and entered the space-time wheel with the ghost lord. 1 day later. Rumble! As the space-time wheel emitted a blue divine light, thousands of terrifying auras soared into the sky, shattering the barrier of the 18 levels of hell. I, ancient sage San Wu, have returned to my peak. Now is the time to slaughter the heavens. My Tao injuries have healed. Let's kill our way up to the 9 heavens. Vigorous voices filled with fighting spirit drifted through the third world. Master! The space-time wheel disappeared, and Chen Nan took the lead to land in front of Chu Bei and bowed. You're already at the Grand Ascension stage. Not bad. Chu Bei looked at Chen Nan with approval. The purple gold divine dragon, dragon baby, Yu Xian and the others flew out one after another. They had all stepped into the heaven stage. After 5,000 years of recuperation, the gods of the primeval age had all recovered from their Tao injuries, and some had even achieved breakthroughs. In terms of auras, the ones with the most terrifying auras were Dugu Beiqian, the Demon Lord, and the Ghost Lord. Even Chu Bei was a little shocked. After recovering to their peak, the auras of these 3 fellows were infinitely close to his. I really want to fight with you again. The Demon Lord came to Chu Bei's side with a hint of fighting spirit in his eyes. Let's go, slaughter the heavens. Chu Bei placed his hands behind his back. Path to heaven, open! Dugu Beiqian, the Demon Lord, and the Ghost Lord looked at each other, nodded, and shouted at the same time. Majestic divine power surged into the gate of reincarnation. Another rumbling sound rang out. In the next moment, a long path extended above the gate of reincarnation, and one could not see the end of it. Look! What is that place? Could it be the same as the third world? Is it also the inner world of one of them? Within the collapsed 18 levels of hell, the future heaven stage experts stared blankly at the path to heaven created by the gate of reincarnation. At the end of the path was an incomparably vast land. To be precise, it was a continent floating in the distant sky. However, it had 9 levels, and each level was higher than the previous one. Cultivate my sword, slaughter my way to the 9 heavens, sprinkle my blood, and advance with indomitable will. Unlike the future experts, when the path to heaven appeared, the ancient gods seemed to have returned to tens of thousands of years ago. Their eyes gradually became bloodshot, and fierce killing intent seeped out of their bodies. The ancient song became louder and louder, and it even spread along the path to heaven to the 9 heavens, revealing an indomitable fighting spirit. Today, we will first kill the chaos survivors, then slaughter the heavens. The ancient gods walked along the path to heaven, and their roars shook the sky. Their violent aura skyrocketed to the 9 heavens. Master, is the heavenly Tao in the 9th level of heaven? Looking at the 9 heavens in the gate of reincarnation, Chen Nan was shocked. Not only him, but everyone who saw this scene for the first time also had an extremely shocked expression. Chu Bei nodded slightly and said indifferently, Let's go, flatten the 9 heavens. With Chu Bei, Dugu Beiqian, the Demon Lord, and the others taking the lead, thousands of ancient gods moved together with monstrous power. The first level of heaven was vast and boundless. This was a dark red land. As soon as he stepped on this land, Chen Nan smelled the pungent smell of blood. The reason why the land was red was because it was contaminated by the blood of too many cultivators in the ancient times. At this moment, the blood-red land was filled with war cries that shook the sky. Densely packed heavenly beasts covered the sky and pounced on the ancient gods as if they had gone mad. Kill them all! Although there were many heavenly beasts, they were nothing in front of the ancient gods who had the strength of a heaven rank. Amidst the war cries, the ancient gods roared, and their killing intent soared to the sky. Each of them displayed their supreme abilities to meet the army of heavenly beasts. In just a few seconds, 100,000 heavenly beasts let out miserable cries one after another. The sky was filled with bloody light, and the scarlet beast's blood made the already blood-red land even darker. 15 minutes later, 100,000 heavenly beasts were all crushed, and even their souls were destroyed by the ancient gods. After slaughtering all the heavenly beasts in the first level of heaven, the gods majestically charged into the second level of heaven. In the second level of heaven, the clouds were misty and vast, and no one knew how many 100,000 miles it was. In the raging wind, all the clouds were blown away, and the earth trembled. In front of them was an endless number of giants rushing over like a tsunami. It was as if the sky and earth were going to shatter, and the second level of heaven was shaking violently. Kill! The demon lord took the lead and roared. Endless spiritual energy surged through the entire second level of heaven, and the terrifying killing intent was like a turbulent sea. Tens of thousands of giants rushed toward the demon lord as if they were possessed. The demon lord was expressionless. With a cold roar, a huge celestial demon diagram covered the sky, and billions of divine souls appeared, wandering in this world. When the celestial demon diagram appeared, it seemed to have turned into a huge devouring whirlpool, and directly swallowed the tens of thousands of giants below. Vaguely, one could see that in the terrifying bloody light, these giants were crushed into meat paste by the billions of divine souls in the celestial demon diagram, and their bodies and souls were destroyed. The third level of heaven. It was shrouded in black fog, and the void was filled with ghostly wails and howls. In the darkness, pairs of scarlet eyes could be vaguely seen. It was a strange and unknown existence. Its body was almost translucent, and it had a humanoid shape, with 6 pairs of wings on its back. However, when the Ghost Lord landed on this land, with a roar, a terrifying fluctuation was as vast as the sky and the sea. In the next moment, a netherworld flag appeared in the Ghost Lord's hand, and it fluttered loudly. The netherworld flag was waved out, and in an instant, the pairs of blood-red eyes in the darkness dimmed, and the translucent bodies quickly collapsed and exploded. Stepping into the 9th level of heaven, the demon lord, the ghost lord, Dugabakian, and the other immemorial gods seemed to have forgotten about Chu Bei, and there was only killing in their eyes. After arriving at the 4th level of heaven, Chu Bei glanced down and pointed a finger. Gradually, the chaos surged and condensed into a beam of light. Destroy! As Cold in the Forest's roar fell, the chaotic beam of light spewed out from Chu Bei's fingertip. In an instant, it penetrated from the 3rd level of heaven to the 1st level of heaven. Rumble! Amidst a shocking explosion, the 3rd level of heaven below completely collapsed, turning into dust and sand. On the battlefield, the ancient demon lord's hair was as white as snow, and his eyes were like cold lightning. Sword Chi shook the sky for 30,000 miles, and his demonic aura was unparalleled. The immemorial taboo fiend god Dugabaikian's killing intent soared to the 9th level of heaven. His hair danced wildly, and he looked down on the world with disdain. He really had the power to destroy everything. The Ghost Lord communicated with the 9 underworld's 10 lands, and he held a netherworld flag in his hand, and a murderous aura of destruction soared to the 9th level of heaven. The space-time god disrupted time and space, and his supreme divine power swallowed mountains and rivers. He also pointed to the 9th level of heaven. Just like that, under the leadership of the demon lord, Dugabakian, the ghost lord, and the other heaven-defying experts, the immemorial gods slaughtered their way from the 4th level of heaven to the 5th level of heaven, and then to the 6th level of heaven. When the army of the immemorial gods stepped into the 7th level of heaven, they stopped in their tracks. Looking carefully, the 7th level of heaven was densely covered with dark clouds, and a murderous aura was dense. There were countless broken angel bones on the ground, and they had at least 12 wings. Obviously, they were all powerful beings in the 7th level of heaven. Look, there's someone there. Why is there someone on the path to heaven? Could it be that he killed all these fallen angels by himself? Who is he? This is the 7th level of heaven. The war in the immemorial age was also the level of heaven where we suffered the most losses. All these fallen angels had the strength of a heavenly rancor, but he killed them all by himself. Looking at the figure standing in the 7th level of heaven, the immemorial gods looked at each other in surprise. Even the demon lord, Dugabatian, and the ghost lord looked at the back of the figure in front of them, and their emotions fluctuated. Judging from the aura, this guy who killed all the fallen angels in the 7th level of heaven by himself had also entered the heaven-defying stage like them. The ones who had the biggest change in emotions were Chen Nan and Yu Xian. At this moment, Chen Nan's eyes were wet, and his body was trembling slightly. Ever since he found Yu Xian, he had been looking for this person. He had searched the heavenly realm and the human realm for many years, but there was no result. He never thought that he would finally meet him in the 7th level of heaven. In the distance, the stalwart figure seemed to have sensed something, and he slowly turned around. His gaze locked onto Chen Nan and Yu Xian, and his body trembled. Child, is that you? Is it really you? That's great, you've really come back to life, and you've become so powerful. In the blink of an eye, the stalwart man appeared in front of Chen Nan, and he grabbed Chen Nan's arm tightly with both hands. His expression was extremely excited, and even his voice was trembling. Father, why are you here? Chen Nan's voice was choked with sobs as he hugged the stalwart man. Uncle Chen, are you all right? Yu Xian was in tears. Child, it seems that your goal is the same as mine. Let's kill the heavenly Tao first, and then we'll catch up. Xinjiang pointed to the sky, and suppressed the throbbing of his heart from reuniting with his son after a long separation. Rumble! Suddenly, the 7th level of heaven, which had been bathed in blood, began to tremble violently. Hearing this, the group of primordial gods immediately looked up, and their faces became more serious. They felt that there was a huge power awakening in the 9th level of heaven, and it was like a ferocious beast that could shatter the entire sky. It gave off an extremely strong sense of oppression, and it made people tremble from the bottom of their hearts. Is that the heavenly Tao? Has he already discovered us? The purple-gold divine dragon howled. Master, what exactly is the heavenly Tao? Chen Nan pointed at the 9th level of heaven, and at the same time, looked at Chu Bei, and asked the question in his heart. Chu Bei smiled at Chen Nan and said, Are you asking about the original heavenly Tao, or the current one? Chen Nan was stunned, and hurriedly asked, What's the difference between them? The heavenly Tao is not a single life form. Once, it was the thoughts of all living beings, and it was a vast consciousness formed by the intertwining of all living beings. It was the will of all living beings. But now, it is an amalgamation of sin and evil energy, and the consciousness of all living beings has long been corroded and shattered. At this point, Chu Bei's gaze swept across the group of primordial gods, and he continued. The original heavenly Tao had no desires, and it represented justice. But now, the heavenly Tao is filled with selfish desires, and it kills all living beings to strengthen itself. It can be said that it has become a huge creature with selfish desires. Even so, these primordial gods don't have to be so obsessed with killing the heavenly Tao, right? Chen Nan asked. If they don't kill the heavenly Tao, then they can only wait for the heavenly Tao to destroy all living beings. Because the consciousness of all living beings will form a new heavenly Tao sooner or later, in order to not be threatened, it will always destroy the world before the new heavenly Tao is formed to protect its position. Chu Bei glanced at Chen Nan and continued. So that's how it is. Chen Nan suddenly understood, and he sighed with emotion. Kill! Go to the 8th level of heaven! With the demon lord, Dugabatian, and the ghost lord in the lead, and the primordial gods behind them followed, they flew toward the 8th level of heaven. How unexpected! The speed of your arrival is much faster than we thought. Just as the primordial gods stepped into the 8th level of heaven, an ethereal voice sounded in everyone's ears. Unlike the gloomy darkness of the previous 7 levels of heaven, the 8th level of heaven was actually incomparably bright. The boundless continent was extremely flat, like a square that had been magnified millions of times. Looking over, there was a black mass in the distance, and countless ferocious heavenly beast kings stared coldly at the primordial gods. In front of them, the King of Chaos, Grand Supreme, Guan Yuan, Hades Sky, Tong Tian, and Qin Tian stood side by side, and their auras were extremely powerful. Chapter 403. Demon Lord, Ghost Lord, Dugabatian, Space-Time, I didn't expect you losers to come back. If I were you, I'd find a place to hide. This time, you won't be as lucky as last time. The King of Chaos, cold in the forest, glanced at Dugabatian and the others. He was surrounded by divine light, and his entire body was protected by a thick chaos armor. It was impossible to see his face clearly, but one could tell that he was an unusually tall expert. If you hadn't joined forces with Azure Sky back then, I wouldn't have been defeated. Dugabatian snorted. His eyes narrowed, and a beam of cold light pierced the sky and shot toward the King of Chaos. Rumble! The King of Chaos immediately attacked. With a loud bang, the light in Dugabatian's eyes shattered. King of Chaos! You'd better come and fight me! Just as Dugabatian was about to attack again, the Demon Lord shouted coldly and moved first. The celestial demon diagram above the Demon Lord's head shone with dazzling light. His inner world was almost transparent, as if there was treasure light flowing out of it. Billions of stars shone dazzlingly. In the next moment, the Demon Lord charged toward the King of Chaos with the celestial demon diagram. Tong Tian, let this old bag of bones accompany you to exercise. The Ghost Lord didn't erupt with murderous intent like the Demon Lord. Instead, his body emitted a faint glow, and his eyes were fixed on Tong Tian. Guan Yuan, you'll be my opponent. The space-time god narrowed his eyes and sighed. Time and space seemed to stop at the same time. Rumble. A moment later, 3 fierce battlefields appeared on the boundless land. Hades Tian glanced at the Demon Lord, King of Chaos, Ghost Lord, and Tong Tian's battlefield, then fixed his eyes on Dugabatian. There are only 4 of you in the heaven-defying tier. How are you going to fight us? I'm afraid you've forgotten about me. At this moment, Chen Zhan flew out from behind, his eyes as deep as the ocean. Although his voice was soft, his killing intent was so sharp that it made many of the primordial gods feel cold. Who are you? Why haven't I seen you in the Archean War? Hades Tian sized up Chen Zhan, his expression extremely cold. Kill! Chen Zhan didn't answer Hades Tian's question. With a cold shout, he directly charged over. The killing intent he released became tangible. As expected of a heaven-defying tier. Sensing the monstrous aura released by Chen Zhan, Hades Tian's expression changed abruptly. He no longer dared to underestimate Chen Zhan. This expert that he had never seen before made him feel a huge threat. He was not any weaker than the Demon Lord, Ghost Lord, and the others. Death of the Netherworld! In an instant, the Hades celestial body became tens of thousands of feet tall. Turbulent ripples tore towards Chen Zhan, and vast energy fluctuations swept through the entire 8th layer of heaven. All eternity is empty. Chen Zhan remained unmoved. There was no emotion on his face as he uttered a curse. In an instant, a layer of formless ripples surged towards Hades' heaven's enormous body like a great river. Immediately, Netherworld Heaven let out a miserable shriek. His 30,000-meter-long body collapsed and then healed. All eternity is empty. You're that madman from ancient times. Yu Mingtian's face was filled with shock, and his eyes were wide with anger. In the exchange just now, half of his strength had been swept away by his opponent's emptiness of eternity. In the distant battlefield, the King of Chaos's face was also filled with shock. In ancient times there had been a madman who had used the emptiness of eternity as empty, which had caused many experts of the chaotic tribe to collapse. So, it's him! Even the Demon Lord, Ghost Lord, and the space-time god looked at Qinjian with surprise in their eyes. My name is Qinjian! Not just anyone, but Qinjian! Qinjian was very domineering, and he struck out another terrifying law. All eternity is hurried! Soon, another battlefield appeared on the boundless land. It was no less intense than the one between the Demon Lord and Ghost Lord. Dugabatian, you're the only one left now. How confident do you think you are in defeating me and Qintian alone? Grand Supreme looked at Dugabatian with a mocking expression, his words filled with mockery. 1,000 tribulations, 100 calamities, all eternity is hurried, in the blink of an eye. Undying body, indestructible soul, shocking the ancients and dazzling the contemporaries. When the time comes to reverse yin and yang, I'll dye the sky red with my demon blood. Dugabatian glanced disdainfully at Grand Supreme, then locked his tyrannical aura on Qintian. I want to kill him before I kill you, he said in a low voice. Qintian was a hazy streak of azure light. It was impossible to tell whether he was a man, a beast, or some other life form. He glanced at Dugabatian, then swept his gaze over the group of ancient gods. In the end, his gaze settled on a man in azure robes. Qintian moved. Under countless gazes, he flew into the sky and shot out a beam of cold light. However, his target wasn't Dugabatian, but someone else. Why is Qintian targeting him? Is there some kind of enmity between him and Qintian? Do you think he's a match for Qintian? He should be able to put up a fight. After all, he's an ancient existence who defeated the Demon Lord and gave us 5,000 years. The group of ancient gods followed Qintian's attack and focused on Chu Bei, their faces filled with astonishment. One is the first heaven under the Tao of Heaven, and the other is an existence from beyond the Tao of Heaven. This is going to be interesting. The gravekeeper old man stroked his beard and smiled as if he were watching a good show. A beautiful woman looked at the gravekeeper old man with a puzzled expression and asked, Master, who is this guy? She was Xian, the first witch of the primeval age, Dugu Baitian's wife, and Dugu Xiaoshuan's mother. I don't know his exact background. It's as if he appeared out of thin air. However, he's stronger than Master, and probably stronger than Dugu Baitian. The gravekeeper old man said. What? Stronger than Dugu Baitian? Xian was shocked, her face filled with disbelief. He should have transcended the heaven-defying step. The gravekeeper old man said hesitantly. The heaven-defying step? Xian looked at Chu Bei's back, her brows furrowed. Perhaps, the gravekeeper old man said, a hint of hope in his eyes. Qintian, who is he? Grand Supreme glanced at Chu Bei and frowned. If he had to deal with Dugu Baitian alone, the pressure would be too great. He's someone who must die for killing my incarnation. A cold voice came from within the green light. I said that I would come to find you. On the battlefield, Chu Bei put his hands behind his back and looked at the green light with a smile. Dugu Baitian looked at Chu Bei, then back at Grand Supreme. Since Qintian has an opponent, I'll kill you first. We don't know who's going to kill who yet. Grand Supreme snorted coldly, and his body emitted a demonic light. A huge soul shadow appeared behind him, and he became indifferent. Both his body and mind had ascended to the Grand Supreme realm. Grand Supreme was a special existence. He was the spokesperson of the heaven-defying step in the primeval age, and he had been famous for a long time. Die. Dugu Baitian narrowed his eyes and spat out a ghastly word. He raised his hand, and a long sword appeared in his palm. The sword light flickered, and its aura alone was enough to crush the void. The sword was called Dugu, and it had made great contributions in the primeval age war, killing many chaos nobles. Rumble! On the boundless continent of the eighth heaven, the 5 battlefields were fighting fiercely, and the sound of explosions went straight to the 9th heaven. Dugu Baitian was fighting Grand Supreme, the ancient demon lord was fighting the Chaos King, the netherworld ghost lord was fighting Tongtian, the space-time god was fighting Huang Yuan, and Xinjiang was fighting Hades Tian. This was the battle between the primeval age gods and the heaven-defying step of the heaven-defying step. All kinds of supreme laws collided, and the sky collapsed and shattered the void. Countless lights flickered, and even the eighth heaven shook violently, as if it could collapse at any time. Boom! All of a sudden, an earth-shattering explosion rang out from above the eighth heaven continent. The sixth battlefield appeared, and it was the battle between Chu Bei and Qing Tian. Cultivate my sword, kill my way to the ninth heaven, sprinkle my hot blood, and advance courageously. Charge, kill all these chaos heavenly beasts. The primeval age gods shouted, and each of them used their divine abilities to fly toward the heaven-defying beast kings in the distance. Roar! The chaos heavenly beasts roared in unison, and their roars shook heaven and earth. Very quickly, the eighth heaven continent had completely turned into a chaotic battlefield, and the sounds of battle were endless. Fury of Qing Tian. Just as Dugabatian, the demon lord, and the ghost lord were fighting fiercely, a faint voice filled with anger echoed in the eighth heaven, and it rang in the ears of every god. It was also at this moment that the battle between Chu Bei and Qing Tian became the focus of everyone's attention. To be precise, this battle had attracted the most attention ever since Qing Tian made his move. After all, Qing Tian was the most powerful existence among the heaven-defying step of the heaven-defying step. During the primeval age, he had shattered the space-time god's physical body, leaving only a pile of bones. He had beaten the demon lord until he was forced to retreat with the other gods and regroup. He had even almost sealed the primeval age's first demon, Dugabatian. Under the gazes of the ghost lord, the space-time god, the demon lord, and the other primeval age gods, Qing Tian's ball of green light suddenly expanded thousands of times, turning into a terrifying green light that was 10 million feet long. The green light surged and turned into 3 transparent divine spears, the tips of the spears releasing a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. In fact, even the primeval gods fighting on the 8th celestial plane were affected by this aura. Their attacks began to slow down. You're not the target of my trip. Qing Tian's soaring aura didn't seem to affect Chu Bei at all. As his emotionless voice fell, Chu Bei flipped his right hand, and a vast energy fluctuation swept out in all directions. Compared to Qing Tian's aura fluctuation, Chu Bei's vast energy not only affected the gods' battlefield below, but also the other 5 primeval age gods' battlefield. Primal chaos light of calamity. Chu Bei was expressionless, and his indifferent voice sounded in the 8th heaven. The primal chaos light that filled the sky surged out of his palm like a river, and within the light, stars could be faintly seen flowing in the sky, extremely gorgeous. Chi! 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 The primal chaos light of calamity disappeared in a flash, and it instantly shattered the 3 transparent divine spears piercing towards Qing Tian. Chapter 404. On the battlefield, after the primal chaos calamity light destroyed the 3 divine spears, it condensed again and transformed into an arrow that shot toward the ball of green light where Qing Tian was. Whoosh! The primal chaos arrow pierced through the green light and exploded at the end of the distant 8th heaven, bringing with it an incomparably terrifying and resplendent aftershock. In the next moment, the green light let out a low hiss filled with pain. Then, the green light retracted and finally transformed into a human form. At this moment, Qing Tian's face was ashen as he stared fixedly at Chu Bei. The light in his eyes was like a blade, carrying a sharp killing intent that made one's heart palpitate. Qing Tian is injured. He actually injured Qing Tian. Is this mysterious person already so powerful? The group of primordial gods stared blankly at the battlefield between Chu Bei and Qing Tian. Although they had yet to reach the heaven-defying stage, they had already stepped into the heaven-defying stage. It was still possible to tell who was winning and who was losing. The Fiend Master, Dugabatian, Lord Ghost, the Space-Time God, and Xinjiang also cast surprised gazes at Chu Bei from their respective intense battles. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Kill! Seeing that Chu Bei had injured Qing Tian, the primordial gods revealed excited expressions, and their fighting spirit became even higher. The 5 heaven-defying experts in the sky also began to use their strongest killing moves. Dugu Baiqian wielded the number 1 divine sword, Dugu. His sword energy soared into the 9 heavens, and his hair danced wildly as he forced the Grand Supreme to retreat. The ancient Fiend Master stood on the general appointing platform with the God Fiend diagram above his head. His hair was as white as snow as his attacks were grand. He gradually gained the upper hand in the battle against the King of Chaos. The Ghost Master held the Netherworld flag, and a murderous aura surged. The space-time god executed the 2 supreme laws of time and space at the same time. His aura was terrifying. Xinjiang's voice shook the heavens and earth. At this moment, the heaven-defying experts on the heavenly Tao's side were all suppressed, and their brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Master, could the mysterious person from the beyond heaven really be able to kill Qing Tian alone? Xian was a little absent-minded as she looked at the battle in the sky. They had exchanged blows twice, and Qing Tian was actually at a disadvantage. Judging from the battle between the mysterious man and Qing Tian, the mysterious man seemed to be suppressing Qing Tian even before he got serious. Didn't I tell you that he might have already reached the height of the heavenly Tao? To him, the blue sky is naturally nothing. The Great Keeper stroked his beard and said leisurely, Mother, look at him and see if there's anything special about him. At this moment, Dugu Xiaoxian tugged at Xuanxuan's sleeve and pointed at Qinnan's direction. Small defeat! Xian looked at Qinnan. She was stunned at first, then her body trembled. In this life, Big Brother's name is Qinnan. He's the son of the primordial Manan, and also the direct disciple of the mysterious person from beyond heaven. Dugu Xiaoxian pointed at Xinjiang, and then at Chu Bei. Haha, as expected of my loser. In this life, perhaps he will go even further than his father. Xian stared blankly at Qinnan's back as he slaughtered the heavenly beasts. Her eyes slowly grew moist, with a tinge of happiness. The battles continued, becoming more and more intense. After about half an hour, a shrill roar shook the 8th heaven. It came from Qing Tian. As the first heaven, as long as the heavenly Tao is not destroyed, I will not die. Qing Tian's aura became a little chaotic. He looked coldly at Chu Bei. No matter how strong you are, you still can't kill me. Reverse chaos. After Chu Bei swung his fist to destroy Qing Tian's terrifying attack, his lips moved slightly as he uttered 6 plain syllables. Unlike the previous attack, as soon as Chu Bei's voice fell, a large amount of chaotic fog inexplicably appeared around Qing Tian. The chaotic fog instantly gathered together and formed a prison around Qing Tian, completely enveloping him within. Qing Tian is trapped. If that's the case, even if the mysterious person can't kill Qing Tian, he can still free himself to help the Devil Lord and the Ghost Lord. No, he's not just imprisoning Qing Tian. Look at the light in the prison. Compared to the confused primordial gods, the primordial King Heiqi, who was fighting on the battlefield, suddenly trembled when the prison was formed. He would never forget this primal chaos prison. He had truly experienced that inhuman torture. What was more terrifying was that the aura in the chaos prison was obviously more terrifying. Its power was also far greater than the prison that acted on him previously. As expected, the next moment, Qing Tian's painful scream came from the prison. This was a horrifying and frightening scene. Qing Tian, who was in the chaos prison, became distorted and his expression was extremely ferocious. As he screamed in pain, his body was instantly turned into a green light by the chaotic light. But in less than a breath, the green light returned to its human form under the effect of the chaotic light. This process kept repeating. Qing Tian, who was the first heaven under the heavenly Tao, kept switching between his human form and the green light, falling into a cycle. However, with each cycle, Qing Tian's originally majestic aura would weaken by a level. In just a few seconds, Qing Tian turned from an adult to a baby under the erosion of the power of time. His aura was even weaker than an early Heaven Realm expert. "Let me out!" Qin Tian roared. His roar was filled with fear. But no matter how he used the supreme law, he could not break free from the chaos prison. At this moment, he was really afraid and felt the threat of death. This was a feeling he had never felt since he was born. Who is he? Why wasn't he here last time? Could he be the same as the primordial madman? Is he also the reincarnation of a supreme existence from the primordial age? Looking at Qin Tian's painful experience, the king of chaos, Guang Yuan, Tong Tian, and the other heaven-defying experts of the heavenly Tao frowned and looked at Chu Bei with more solemn eyes. "Heavenly Tao, save me!" Finally, Qin Tian could not help but roar at the ninth heaven. His roar was filled with fear. If he delayed any longer, then he would probably vanish completely from this mysterious and unknown chaos prison. Rumble! Qin Tian's cry for help penetrated the eighth heaven and reached the ninth heaven. Soon, a buzzing sound came from the ninth heaven. Following that, an endless destructive aura gushed down from all directions. Qin Tian's cry seemed to have awakened the supreme existence that was sleeping in the ninth heaven. Is it another cycle of reincarnation? In an instant, a vast and ethereal voice floated down from the highest point, shaking one's heart. Is it the heavenly Tao? The demon lord punched the king of chaos back and looked up. You are no longer the will of all living beings. You should have been destroyed in the primordial age war. As Cold in the Forest shout fell, the general appointing platform under the demon lord's feet directly collided with the ninth heaven. At the same time, the ghost lord brandished the netherworld flag. It fluttered and brought along billions of souls to move side by side with the general appointing platform. Dugu Baitian also threw out the first divine sword in his hand. The sword light raged and shot out. Whoosh! However, just as the demon lord and the other two supreme divine artifacts were about to charge into the ninth heaven, a blood-colored river surged out. Then, with three deep bangs, the three supreme divine artifacts shattered in the river. Lord Heavenly Tao has completely awakened. You lowly ants, prepare to become nutrients for the ninth heaven. The appearance of the blood-colored river made Grand Supreme overjoyed and excited. Before slaughtering the heavenly Tao, I'll kill you first. Hearing Grand Supreme's words, Dugu Baitian directly pressed forward and struck out with supreme laws. After a few exchanges, Grand Supreme let out a miserable cry as one of his arms was blasted into a rain of blood. Lord Heavenly Tao, please teach me. Qin Tian was still shouting, but his voice was getting weaker and weaker. The ball of green light that he had transformed into had already become translucent, as if it would dissipate at any moment. All of you, come back first. The vast voice once again came from the ninth heaven. It was deafening and ethereal. It was as if 10,000 clock towers were trembling at the same time. The endless pressure was terrifying. As the voice drifted, 6 huge scarlet hands appeared in the blood-colored river and descended from the sky. Limbs of the heavenly Tao! The killing intent of the demon lord, Dugu Baitian, time god, and the ghost lord grew even sharper when they saw the 6 scarlet hands. They were all minor path masters of the 6 paths. In the primordial war, the appearance of the heavenly Tao limbs had caused them to suffer a crushing defeat. Among them, 2 of the 6 path masters had perished forever. Rumble! With a loud bang, the 6 scarlet hands grabbed at the 6 heaven-defying experts of the heavenly Tao. You can't save them! Dugu Baitian was seething with anger. He struck out 3 supreme laws at the same time at the giant hands. However, the giant hands trembled slightly, and easily defeated Dugu Baitian's 3 laws, then took Grand Supreme away. Chaotic yin and yang, illusory void flower! The demon lord shouted. The diagram of gods and demons spun, and billions of souls poured into the giant hands. They didn't cause any damage either, and the king of chaos was taken away. The same was true for Time God, the Ghost Lord, and Xinjiang's battlefields. The only exception was Chu Bei and Grand Supreme's battlefields. The primordial gods stared blankly at the sky, their expressions grave. Dugubatian, the Demon Lord, Time God, Ghost Lord, and Chinjan, the 5 heaven-defying experts, struck the giant scarlet hands with their strongest attacks, but they didn't cause any damage to them. In the end, they could only watch as the 5 scarlet hands took Grand Supreme, the King of Chaos, Guang Yuan, Skirich, and Nether Firmament away. If there was anything special, it would be the battlefield where the mysterious man was. The Heavenly Tao's 6th scarlet hand had appeared on the battlefield, but even without Chu Bei's intervention, it hadn't been able to break through the chaos prison. It had only caused a ripple. "Lord Heavenly Tao, save me!" Grand Supreme was so weak that the light he transformed into was almost white. Only wisps of green remained, as if he'd dissipate at any moment. When Grand Supreme saw the scarlet hands descend, it was as if he'd seen a glimmer of light in the dark void. His voice was unusually excited. Chapter 405. Boom! The 6th blood-red giant hand that descended from the 9th heaven smashed into the chaos prison for the 2nd time. This time, a few cracks appeared on the chaos prison, but it still didn't break. Chaotic Cloud Sword! However, just as the giant blood-red hand was about to land for the 3rd time, Chu Bei spat out 4 light syllables from his mouth. As Chu Bei's indifferent voice fell, a dazzling longsword that was formed by the condensation of chaos appeared in his hand. There were thousands of strange phenomena intertwining on the sword's body. "You're not qualified to save someone from my hands." Chu Bei's expression was indifferent. After his emotionless voice drifted from the 8th heaven, it skyrocketed to the 9th heaven. In the next moment, Chu Bei swung the sword horizontally. In an instant, the 8th heaven seemed to have lost its light. All the energy elements were mobilized by the chaotic cloud sword in his hand. The sword light wreaked havoc, flashed, and swept across the blood-red giant hand. Rip! With a sharp tearing sound, the blood-red giant hand shattered into several pieces. Then, it was as if an endless amount of terrifying energy was poured into it. The pieces of flesh suddenly swelled and exploded with a bang, turning into a bloody mist. Finally, it was absorbed by the blood-red river in the 9th heaven. How could this be? Looking at the blood-red giant hand exploding, Qing Tian's remaining strength let out a terrified voice. He could not believe what he had seen. "I said that not only will I kill your doppelganger, but I will also kill your real body." The chaotic cloud sword in Chu Bei's hand disappeared. Then, his gaze fell on the chaos prison. With a point of his finger, the chaos prison exploded with a bang, turning into a rain of light and disappearing. Of course, Qing Tian also disappeared with it. One could vaguely hear his unwilling and fearful wail before his death. Qing Tian, the 1st heaven under the heavenly axiom, is dead. The eternal demon master, the netherworld ghost lord, the forbidden god Dugubatian, the space-time god, and the reincarnated primordial man. Even they could not stop the heavenly axiom's avatar, but he destroyed it with a single strike. Haha, maybe we can really destroy the heavenly axiom this time. That mysterious person seems to be stronger than the 5 of them. After a long time, the primordial gods recovered from their shock. All of them looked at Chu Bei in disbelief, their eyes filled with respect. The Devil Lord, Ghost Lord, Heaven-defeating Dugu, the space-time god, and Chinjan looked at Chu Bei with a strange look in their eyes. It was as if they had a new understanding of Chu Bei's combat strength. Fortunately, I knew my limits. Otherwise, my old bones would have been shattered by him. The gravekeeper old man sighed. This is Wastrel's master? As expected, he's even stronger than Heaven Destroyer. Xian stared at Chu Bei's back in a daze. The heaven-defying stage expert from the Heavenly Tao's side has been taken away by the Heavenly Tao. Kill them all! Kill them all! The heavenly axiom took the Grand Supreme and the others away. The ancient battle song once again sounded from the boundless continent of the 8th heaven. With Chu Bei killing the heavenly axiom's body first, the primordial gods seemed to have been injected with stimulants. Their attacks became fiercer and fiercer, and their fighting spirit soared. After losing their opponents, the Devil Lord, Ghost Lord, Heaven defeating Dugu, the Space-Time God, and Xinjiang, the 5 heaven-defying experts, also joined the new battlefield. The originally black mass of chaos heavenly beasts was wiped out in the blink of an eye. The pungent smell of blood permeated the battlefield. However, to the primordial gods, this was the most exciting smell. Kill our way to the 9th heaven. Kill the heavenly axiom. The primordial gods looked up at the last heaven. Their eyes were filled with killing intent, and their auras were monstrous. Then, under the leadership of Heaven defeating Dugu, the Devil Lord, and the others, the primordial gods ascended the last heaven. Could that be the heavenly axiom's true body? Once they ascended the 9th heaven, the primordial gods' eyes were attracted to an incomparably huge ball of light in the sky. That ball of light was extremely strange. Just looking at it would make one's heart tremble. The light released from it also stretched for millions of miles. The heavenly axiom was originally an amalgamation of the will of all living beings, but now it had become a massive life form formed by endless resentment eroding the will of all living beings. Where's Qin Tian? His aura has disappeared. Is he already dead? How can that be? With the heavenly axiom taking action, there's no way he can't save Qin Tian. Below the ball of light, the 5 heaven-defying experts, Grand Supreme, the King of Chaos, Guang Yuan, Tong Tian, and Hades Heaven, stood side by side. When they couldn't sense Qin Tian's aura, their expressions changed drastically. Their eyes fell on Chu Bei with suspicion. Qin Tian has already been destroyed. It'll be your turn soon. The Devil Lord glanced indifferently at the King of Chaos and the others. With that, the God-Fiend diagram above his head expanded to its limit until it enveloped all the primordial gods. It was also at this moment that Qin Nan seemed to sense something. The God-Fiend diagram in his body actually flew out and enveloped everyone's heads. Interesting. 2 worlds, 2 complete heavens and earth. A vast and ethereal voice came from the huge ball of light high up in the sky. One could vaguely see a huge vertical eye in the ball of light. The pupil was red and surrounded by a gray aura. It made one's heart palpitate. The day to slaughter the heavens is now. The Devil Lord shouted. Majestic divine power poured into the God-Fiend diagram. Suddenly, billions of divine souls appeared in the God-Fiend diagram. An ant dares to compete with the bright moon. Far in the sky, the red vertical eye in the ball of light released a beam of light. Its cold voice was emotionless. As the light shot out from his eyes, even the air in the 9th heavenly realm turned scarlet. This aura. Feeling the aura released by the heavenly axiom and looking around, the primordial gods felt as if they had suddenly come to hell. The one whose expression changed the most was none other than Chu Bei. At this moment, Chu Bei's expression was clearly more serious. Previously, he had thought that the heavenly axiom had only transcended the heaven-defying stage and was at level 17 like him. In other words, it was equivalent to the flawless great emperor of shrouding heaven. However, the moment the heavenly axiom released its aura, he knew that his guess was wrong. The heavenly axiom was not at level 17. It was already at level 18, which was above him. It was equivalent to the true immortal of shrouding heaven, which was above the great emperor in shrouding heaven. How are you going to slaughter the heavens? Sensing the terrifying aura released by the heavenly axiom, the Devil Lord and Heaven defeating Dugu frowned. After exchanging glances, they looked at Chu Bei in unison. Chu Bei was silent. Currently, he had used up all his cheats. He could only try to communicate with the system. Fine. Thank you for 5,000 years. The Devil Lord, Heaven defeating Dugu, and Ghost Lord seemed to have noticed something from Chu Bei's expression. After exchanging glances, they nodded at the same time. Follow the original plan. The next moment, Heaven defeating Dugu roared. Boundless light spewed out of his forehead and enveloped Qin Nan's God-Fiend diagram. In an instant, the God-Fiend diagram that originally belonged to Qin Nan soared to a level comparable to the Devil Lord's God-Fiend diagram. Combine! Heaven defeating Dugu and the Devil Lord's roars resounded through the sky. Then, the two God-fiend diagrams intertwined and overlapped with each other according to a strange pattern. An even more complete world! The Chaos King, Heaven defeating Dugu, and Hell defeating Dugu looked at the brand new God-fiend diagram in shock. Is this your trump card? The heavenly axiom's voice was still incomparably cold, as if nothing could stir his emotions. Everyone, I'm sorry! The Devil Lord and Heaven defeating Dugu coldly glanced at the heavenly axiom in the sky, then turned to the primordial gods behind them and bowed deeply. In the next moment, endless starlight filled the world within the brand new God-fiend diagram. The battle that should have ended in the primordial era has dragged on until today. It's time to end it. Annihilate the heavenly axiom without fear. Looking at the God-fiend diagram above their heads, the primordial gods' fighting spirits soared as their roars resounded through the 9 heavens. Devil Lord, I hope you won't play with us this time. The 7 primordial kings, led by Hei-Chi, coldly glanced at the Devil Lord before stepping into the God-fiend diagram. I, Heaven-destroying Demon King, am going. Annihilate the heavenly axiom. I, Golden-winged Great Pink King, am the first to bear the brunt. Master, I'm going. The primordial gods seemed to know what was going to happen next and what they had to do, so they all flew into the God-fiend diagram. Gods united, annihilate the heavenly axiom. Heaven defeating Dugu roared at the sky, his black hair standing on end. His hands moved, and the primordial gods were drawn into their corresponding positions in the God-fiend diagram. The Devil Lord did the same thing, while the Ghost Lord, Space God, and Xinjiang stabilized the God-fiend diagram. Rumble, thousands of primordial gods stood in the God-fiend diagram, their bodies releasing dazzling light at the same time. Amidst a frightening strange sound, the God-fiend diagram rapidly enlarged again, and a terrifying fluctuation rose and fell. Annihilate the heavenly axiom, protect the common people. Their uniform shouts were like a resounding bell, shaking the heavens. The ultimate battle, kill. The Devil Lord, Heaven defeating Dugu, Ghost Lord, Space God, and Xinjiang, the 5 heaven-defying experts, looked at each other. After a unanimous decision, they controlled the God-fiend diagram to attack the heavenly axiom. In the process, they even ignored Chu Bei and forgot about his existence. Chu Bei stood at the side, frowning as he watched everything, trying to communicate with the system. Now that the God-fiend diagram had taken shape, the real battle against the heavenly axiom had begun. I have to say you're well prepared. You've even refined a complete world, which makes me feel threatened. However, the heavenly axiom is indestructible. Today, let a news cycle begin. High in the sky, a contemptuous voice came from the huge ball of light, and then the vertical eye spewed out blood-red light. Boom! The ball of light that represented the heavenly axiom spun and evolved into a black and white wheel. That's the world-grinding wheel, an existence of the same origin as me. But it's far stronger than me. The Great Keeper Elder stood in a corner in the God-fiend diagram with a grave expression. His main body, the life and death wheel, was born by absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Rumble! As the world-grinding wheel spun, the God-fiend diagram was affected and began to shake. Beyond the 9 heavens, in the boundless starry sky, devastating cracks appeared one after another as tens of millions of stars exploded. Destroy the heavenly axiom. In the God-fiend diagram, the ancient gods moved together and released their strongest power to resist the terrifying power of the world-grinding wheel. After a while, huge runes flew out of the God-fiend diagram and attacked the heavenly axiom. Ants! A vast and cold voice echoed. The runes that flew out of the God-fiend diagram exploded before they could touch the heavenly axiom. God-fiend heaven-defying kill. Heaven defeating Dugu and the Devil Lord shouted again. Then, an ultimate array flew out of the God-fiend diagram and soared into the sky. Rumble! The world-grinding wheel spun faster and faster, and a destructive aura descended. The ultimate array on the God-fiend diagram instantly shattered and turned into a rain of light. You want to defy the heavens? Laughable! The heavenly axiom's voice was still indifferent and filled with disdain as the world-grinding wheel gradually seeped into the God-fiend diagram. Of course, only a part of it seeped in, but because it was so vast, even a corner of it brought a destructive disaster to the ancient gods. Ah! The closest primordial gods, even heaven realm experts, had their bodies explode under the boundless power of resentment. Their primordial spirits exploded along with their primordial souls. Then, a roar filled with pain and unwillingness reverberated within the diagram of gods and demons. Not enough. Our current power is far from enough. Use my blood as a sacrifice to the God-fiend diagram, and slaughter the heavenly axiom. Fearless shouts reverberated in the God-demon diagram. The ancient gods were all sitting cross-legged. Not only that, but the Devil Lord, heaven-defeating Dugu, the space-time god, the Ghost Lord, and Xinjiang also flew into the God-fiend diagram. Just like the ancient gods, in the mighty and ancient battle song, they began to burn their boundless divine power and their origin blood essence, which represented their vitality, and then poured into the diagram of the gods and demons. With the infusion of the ancient god's blood, the God-fiend diagram trembled and its aura skyrocketed as if it had advanced. The boundless divine light condensed and collided with the millstone disk. Now they had the power to fight. Looking at the God-fiend diagram and the world-grinding wheel in a deadlock, Chu Bei's expression became more and more serious. If this continued, the ancient gods would definitely be the ones to lose in the end. After all, they were relying on the God-fiend diagram to be in a deadlock with the world-grinding wheel. Once the ancient gods' vitality was exhausted, they would lose the battle. Host can use the power of the current plane reputation. Finally, under Chu Bei's continuous communication, the system responded. Hearing the system's voice, Chu Bei immediately looked at the system's reputation interface. He saw that the reputation points of the 5 planes, Dolo, Journey to the West, Shrouding Heaven, and the Tomb of the Gods, were jumping at the same time. According to the system's information, Chu Bei's divine consciousness moved. In the next moment, a large blank diagram appeared above Chu Bei's head. There was no image on the diagram, but its surface was absorbing an endless stream of purple light. This purple light was the reputation power of the 5 planes. In addition, there were also some blue light spots in the river-like purple light. Looking at these blue light spots, they came from the ancient gods in the God-fiend diagram. What the blue dots of light represented was the divine will of the ancient gods that were willing to sacrifice themselves. As the blank diagram absorbed the reputation power of the 5 planes and the divine consciousness of the ancient gods, Chu Bei's aura began to soar. Chapter 406. Rumble. In the distant battlefield, the God-fiend diagram and the millstone were in a stalemate. A terrifying aura filled the air and tore the sky apart. Inside the God-fiend diagram, there was a sea of red. That was the blood of the primordial gods that was flowing into the God-fiend diagram. The primordial gods were chanting an ancient battle song. Their eyes were firm, and they were not afraid of death. Grand Supreme, Guang Yuan, come and help. Heavenly Tao's cold voice came from the millstone. Heavenly Tao, no! Please let us go. Grand Supreme, Guang Yuan, King of Chaos, Hades Heaven, and Tong Tian seemed to have realized something when they heard Heavenly Tao's words. Fear appeared on their faces instantly. However, before they could escape, 5 giant blood-red hands reached out from the millstone and grabbed the Grand Supreme and the others before throwing them into the millstone. After a while, the 5 primordial gods' miserable cries came from the millstone. At that moment, the millstone's light became even brighter, and its aura became even more terrifying. Then, the stalemate in the battlefield was broken. Ah! The millstone's aura seeped into the God-fiend diagram again. This time, 1/3 of the primordial gods exploded, and their primordial spirits were shattered. Demon Master, this can't go on! Gradually, the aura that seeped into the millstone became more violent. The surviving primordial gods' expressions became worse. Forget it. I've never been threatened with death in my life, but today, I'm going to destroy myself for you. In the Ga-Fim diagram, the gravekeeper elder sighed. He looked at Xian reluctantly and flew toward the millstone. I'm going to manifest my true body, the life and death disc. Although it's not as good as the millstone, it's still a heavenly treasure from the same era as it. You can work together to control my true body and destroy the millstone to get rid of heavenly Tao. The gravekeeper elder's voice echoed in the ears of the primordial gods. After saying that, he went to his death. His skinny body was instantly magnified thousands of times. The next moment, a huge millstone appeared in the God-Fiend diagram and spun rapidly toward heavenly Tao. Master! Xuan's face was covered in tears. Her voice was choked, and her jade-like hands were grasping the air helplessly. Even if my body dies, my heart will not die. I want to kill the heavens. The Gravekeeper old man had a resolute look on his face. Then, he looked at Chu Bei and said, You're AF * King Liar. What beyond heaven? In the end, I'm still going to die. The Gravekeeper old man's life and death plate collided with the heavenly Tao world millstone. Illusion void flower! All eternity is empty. Heaven-defying 9 revolutions. Netherworld descent. Space-time decay. It was also at this moment that the Demon Lord, Xinjiang, Dugu Beitian, the Ghost Lord, and the Space-Time God, the 5 heaven-defying experts, attacked at the same time. To be more precise, they weren't the only ones. The other archaic gods also attacked, all of them unleashing their most powerful attacks. Borrowing the power of the diagram of gods and demons, they struck the Gravekeeper's plate of life and death. Rumble! Amidst a loud noise, the life and death plate's body expanded, and it emitted resplendent divine radiance. Its aura rose several hundred times. Under the combined power of the ancient gods, the life and death plate collided with the world-grinding plate. Rumble! Along with an earth-shattering rumble, the blood-red 9th level of heaven crumbled and turned into nothingness. The diagram of gods and demons shook, emitting a strange buzzing sound, and then it exploded with a bang. Then, hundreds and thousands of figures turned into divine rainbows and rushed out of the exploded diagram of gods and demons. Under the collision, even the Demon Lord, Xinjiang, Dugu Beitian, the Ghost Lord, and the Space-Time God, the 5 heaven-defying experts, all had extremely weak auras. As for the ancient gods of the heaven realm, they were all skin and bones, thin to the extreme. In the previous collision, all of their origin blood essence had been sacrificed to the diagram of gods and demons. Is it over? Did we win or lose? Is the heavenly Tao dead? The void was dead silent. The archaic gods stared blankly at the chaotic space that had exploded, and their expressions were extremely nervous. You can't kill me. In the end, a new era will come. Suddenly, an indifferent and cold voice sounded. Hearing this, the mood of the archaic gods fell into an ice valley. Gradually, the battlefield became clear. The life and death plate was nowhere to be seen, and there was only a dissipating rain of light on the battlefield. As for the world-grinding disk, only a quarter of it had shattered, and a vast energy aura was still fluctuating, releasing supreme power. How could this be? Why? Looking at the world-grinding disk, the archaic gods howled in grief, their howls filled with deep unwillingness. Just a bunch of ants, die. The heavenly Tao's voice was as cold as before, and his killing intent was strong. Buzz! Buzz! The world-grinding disk shone resplendently and began to repair itself. At the same time, it spun rapidly and suppressed Dugu Beitian, the Demon Lord, and the others with world-destroying power. 1,000 calamities, 100 calamities. Millions of years later, we will come back here and fight again. The Demon Lord, Ghost Lord, Dugu Beitian, the Space-Time God, and the other archaic gods, who were only skin and bones, began to split apart, releasing a white light. The last of their divine power gathered in the sky, as if they were going to fight the heavenly Tao one last time. Rumble! The world-grinding disc froze the void and appeared above the archaic gods with a creepy sound. Almost at the same time, the ball of light condensed from the last of the archaic gods' divine power was completely formed and faced the world-grinding disc. The archaic gods sat cross-legged in the void and chanted an ancient war song. Chi. However, just as the ball of light condensed from the last of the archaic gods' divine power was about to collide with the world-grinding disc, a purple light with blue spots of light appeared out of nowhere. It was as if it had cut off the passage of time and separated the two. Rumble! In the next moment, the purple light released a mysterious power and shattered the ball of light. Then, the wisps of divine power in the ball of light separated and returned to the bodies of the archaic gods. At the same time, the world-grinding disc with its world-destroying aura seemed to be forcefully fixed in the void by the purple light wrapped in chaos. It was motionless. What kind of power is this? It actually blocked the heavenly Tao grinding disc. Who is it? Could it be that there's a power hidden in this vast world that we don't know about? The archaic gods stared blankly at the purple light that had cut off the world-grinding disc. They looked at each other in dismay. The Fiend Master, Dudubatian, Ghost Lord, Chenjan, and the space god seemed to have realized something and looked at Chu Bei in unison. It's you! With just a glance, the Fiend Master, Dudubatian, and the other four sensed the change in Chu Bei. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. I've indeed underestimated the heavenly Tao's strength. In order to deal with him, I had to undo another seal. It took me some time. Facing the gazes of the Fiend Master, Dudubatian, and the other four, Chu Bei glanced at the archaic gods and nodded slightly. There was no change in his expression. Then, Chu Bei's gaze landed on the world-grinding disc. It's time to end this. A calm voice drifted through the air, shaking the archaic gods. It's you again! The heavenly Tao's voice came from the world-grinding disc. But this time, there was finally a ripple in his voice, and there was a trace of surprise. It was as if he couldn't believe that the guy in front of him could stop the world-grinding disc. Chu Bei didn't say anything. As he stepped forward, the primal chaos appeared behind him and the huge purple diagram swayed above his head. Buzz! 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 The primal chaos light and the purple light intertwined and enveloped Chu Bei's body, forming a giant that was 10,000 feet tall. This energy and aura! Feeling the energy circulating around Chu Bei, the Fiend Master, Dudubatian, Ghost Lord, and the other archaic gods were shocked. They all looked at Chu Bei in disbelief. This was because they sensed a familiar energy from the energy that belonged to them. However, this energy seemed to have been strengthened hundreds or thousands of times. The archaic gods stared blankly at Chu Bei, their faces filled with confusion and confusion. Die! The heavenly Tao's voice rang out. The world-grinding disc spun faster and faster, and its aura became more terrifying. In the face of the heavenly Tao's pressure, Chu Bei's expression didn't change. He simply punched out. Boom! With a loud bang, the purple light on the case giant's fist pierced through the world-grinding disc like the sharpest weapon in history. Impossible! The heavenly Tao's terrified voice had just sounded when the purple light on the case giant's fist completely erupted. Crack! Crack! A series of crisp cracking sounds reverberated in the crumbling sky. The archaic gods were numb. Because they had personally experienced the horror of the world-grinding disc, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. One punch. Just one punch had shattered the world-grinding disc that all of them couldn't do anything to. Countless fragments scattered. The heavenly Tao quickly flew out and distanced himself from the battlefield. What kind of energy is that? Why is it so unfamiliar? The heavenly Tao opened his vertical eye, and a beam of blood-red light penetrated the chaos giant. It's the energy of all living beings. Chu Bei's voice was calm. With a wave of his left hand, a purple arrow appeared in the chaos giant's right hand. At the same time, the rolling chaos behind him evolved into a bow and flew into the chaos giant's left hand. With the prestige of the 5 planes as the arrow, and Xiao Hei's power as the bow. At this moment, Chu Bei and the chaos giant that enveloped him stood in the sky as if they were the masters of heaven and earth. The Heavenly Tao's nightmare! The Heavenly Tao seemed to have sensed the horror of the bow in the chaos giant's hand, and a little fear appeared in his vertical eye. Then, with a cold shout, the vertical eye shot out a dark beam of light. Billions of evil spirits roared, and one could vaguely hear the roars of the Chaos King in Hades' heaven. Chu Bei was still unmoved, and there was no fear on his face. With a thought, the Chaos Giant knocked the arrow and drew the bow. The bow was surrounded by chaos, and the purple arrow shot out. Whoosh! In an instant, the purple arrow shattered the dark beam of light. The next moment, there was a shrill scream, and the purple arrow pierced through the Heavenly Tao's vertical eye. Boom! It was misty chaos again. The battlefield suddenly became quiet. Space and time seemed to have stopped. Chapter 407. Is it really over this time? What kind of power are those? Did he destroy the Heavenly Tao with his own strength? As time passed, the hazy chaos on the battlefield dissipated. The vertical eye that represented the Heavenly Tao was nowhere to be found. After a long while, the primordial gods came back to their senses. Their gazes fell on Chu Bei, their voices trembling. Swoosh! At this moment, a white pearl emerged from where the Heavenly Tao had disappeared and flew into Chu Bei's glabella. Host destroyed the Heavenly Tao and obtained the Heavenly Pearl. Mission completed. Level 14 Commodity Authority activated. Host's cultivation base has been raised to the pinnacle of level 14. Host is rewarded with 1 use of Xiao Hei's power and 1 use of a level 18 commodity. If the host wishes to activate level 15 Commodity Authority, head to the Perfect World. According to the system's notification, after completing the mission, level 15 Commodity Authority will be activated and additional rewards will be obtained. The system's voice rang out in Chu Bei's mind. At this moment, the Chaos Giant around Chu Bei's body had disappeared, and the arrow shot from the divine bow in his left hand had also turned into a rain of light and dissipated. No! The Heavenly Tao is still here! Look, it's appeared again. It's not dead yet. Suddenly, a primordial god exclaimed, his voice filled with fear. Looking in the direction of the voice, the primordial gods, including Duga Beitian and the others, who had originally relaxed, turned serious once more. They saw a mass of white light gather in front of Chu Bei again, and a huge vertical eye slowly opened within it. At the same time, a vast and surging power swept out, not at all inferior to the world millstone's aura. Is the Heavenly Tao really immortal? Looking at the vertical eye that had appeared once again, the primordial gods looked desolate and indignant. But the next moment, their expressions froze. Master! That huge vertical eye looked at Chu Bei and called out a name that made the gods numb. No! This isn't the Heavenly Tao that was filled with endless resentment just now. This is a newly born Heavenly Tao. Did you hear that? This new Heavenly Tao actually respects him as its master. The ancient gods recovered from their trance and seemed to have understood something. They stared at Chu Bei's back dumbfoundedly, and their expressions gradually froze. Chu Bei sized up the new Heavenly Tao in front of him, and his heart throbbed. At that moment, the heavenly jewel that he had obtained from killing Yuan Tiandao floated up and down in his sea of consciousness, releasing a bright light, as if it was inextricably linked to this new Heavenly Tao. To be more precise, to the Heavenly Tao, Tianzhu was more like a superior. Chu Bei had a feeling that he could destroy the new Heavenly Tao with a single thought through the heavenly jewels. Resurrect the primordial gods who died before. After a long while, a calm voice came out of Chu Bei's mouth. Yes. The new great path of the heavens responded stiffly. Then, its vertical eye opened, and a rain of light gushed out from the ball of light. Rumble! A resplendent rain of light poured down, causing the void to rumble. In just a moment, the souls that had originally dissipated gathered together under the gaze of the living primordial gods. Am I not dead? War god Caesar returned. Could it be that I, the dignified heavenly dragon knight, Hai Jia, have entered reincarnation again? No, we don't seem to be dead. Or rather, we have been resurrected. The primordial gods who had died under Yuan Tiandao were resurrected one after another. In the end, a huge wheel slowly took shape, and then transformed into the appearance of an old man. Ha ha, this old man knew that I wouldn't die. A wild laughter floated in the sky, and the gravekeeper old man reappeared in the world, his face full of vitality. Great! Resurrected, all of you have been resurrected! Under the reign of light, the primordial gods, who were originally just skin and bones, regained their vitality, and their auras returned to their peak. Everyone is back! We've won this battle! The resurrected primordial gods gradually understood what was going on, and they all bowed deeply to Chu Bei with incomparable gratitude. Master, you are fine. This is great, really great. Xian threw herself into the gravekeeper old man's arms, her beautiful eyes wet with tears. This old man is immortal. How can I die so easily? The gravekeeper old man patted Xian, then looked at Chu Bei in disbelief, the corners of his lips trembling. Your aura! You really killed the heavenly Tao with your own strength. You fought the heavens, but you didn't know that I created the heavens. The cause was caused by me, and the effect was naturally destroyed by me, Chu Bei said calmly. Hearing this, the gravekeeper old man's body suddenly trembled. These were such familiar words. The old heavenly Tao brought disaster to all living things. Then I will destroy it and return you a just heavenly Tao. Chu Bei's mighty voice resounded from the sky with his hands behind his back. The new heavenly Tao stood in the distant sky, releasing a righteous aura. The creator of the heavens! Is this his origin? The mighty voice lingered in the ears of the primordial gods, and they stared blankly at Chu Bei, muttering. What is the realm above the heaven-defying tier? Is there an even higher realm on that one? Dugubatian, the demon lord, the ghost lord, and the other heaven-defying tier powerhouses fixed their gazes on Chu Bei. Apart from respect, there was also a kind of yearning. When you break through the barrier of this world and go beyond the heavens, you will know everything. Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the new heavenly Tao released a majestic force that shot straight to the sky. In the next moment, a thin spatial barrier appeared in the distant sky. Outside the barrier were countless stars, and there was even a galaxy flowing to an unknown place. Is that the heavens beyond the heavens? It wasn't just Dugubatian, the Fiend Master, and the other heaven-defying tier powerhouses. Their eyes were filled with fighting spirit as well. It turns out that this world is much bigger than I thought. It seems that I still have to continue cultivating. The gravekeeper old man sighed, and then, under everyone's gaze, he transformed into a handsome young man. Chen, Master has achieved the goal of this trip. It's time for me to leave. You have to cultivate diligently and break through as soon as possible. Master will wait for you in the heavens beyond the heavens. At this point, Chu Bei pointed at the galaxy outside the spatial barrier in the distant sky and said, Master will wait for you in the heavens beyond the barrier. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Bei waved his sleeve, and the space-time wheel appeared again. Chu Bei stepped into it, and disappeared from everyone's sight. After completing the mission in the Divine Tomb, Chu Bei's cultivation had reached the peak of level 14. Perfect world, huh? Chu Bei stood on the river of time and used his free time to review the perfect world. The perfect world. The morning glow rose, and the golden sunlight poured through the forest and onto the ground, shining brightly. This was a boundless mountain range with high peaks and valleys, and the mountains were majestic. Above a high mountain, a ripple appeared in the void, and an azure channel emerged from the ripple. After a while, a young man walked out of the blue channel. Mission 1. Host Science Sure How. When Chu Bei walked out of the blue channel, the system's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. I'm finally out. Chu Bei stretched his body and looked at the red dot marked on the system map. His gaze swept across the continuous mountain range below, and the corners of his mouth raised into a smile. Then, he turned into a divine rainbow and flew toward the east. Soon, Chubei came to the sky above an ancient village. At this moment, on the flat square in the center of the ancient village, dozens of children were humming and exercising their physiques. These children were of different ages. The oldest was 14 or 15 years old, and the youngest was only 5 or 6 years old. Their young and tender faces were full of seriousness. The older children's punches were vigorous and had some momentum, but the younger children's movements were a bit like the dance of gods and demons. In front of this group of children, a middle-aged man with bronze skin and strong muscles like a tiger and leopard, with black hair draped over his shoulders and wearing an animal skin coat, was seriously instructing. When the sun rises, all things are born. Although the vitality at this time is not as strong as the spiritual energy in the cave, it is still stronger than other times. Welcoming the sun to temper the body has great benefits, and it can fill the human body with vitality. The plan of the day is to wake up early and work hard to strengthen the muscles and bones. Only by becoming strong can you have the capital to survive in this boundless mountain range in the future. The middle-aged man's face was serious, and his bright eyes swept across the group of children. After he finished speaking, he shouted, "Do you all understand?" "Yes." The group of children was full of energy, and responded loudly, "I understand too." At this moment, a little guy who was obviously distracted by half a beat yelled in a childish voice. This was a very young child, about 2 or 3 years old. He was hiding at the side and training his physique with this group of children. "Ha ha!" Sensing everyone's gaze, the little guy's tender little face immediately became serious. His white and tender little arms began to wave with all his might, as if he was trying his best to perform for the middle-aged man and the group of children. However, his age was really too young. His movements were crooked, and his steps were unsteady. He swayed and staggered from time to time, and with the white milk stains at the corner of his mouth, it really made people laugh. "Ha ha ha, little guy, you're really good at fighting. Much better than us." The group of children laughed loudly and pointed at the 2 or 3-year-old little guy. They winked at each other, and the originally serious atmosphere of the morning exercise immediately lightened up by a lot. At the same time, in another field, the elders who were sitting cross-legged on huge rocks and absorbing heaven's essence all revealed smiles. In Stone Village, no matter if it was the elders, the middle-aged, or the children, they all liked to call this 2 or 3-year-old little guy, little guy. Because compared to the other children, he was really too small. His big black eyes rolled around, and his entire body was like a white porcelain doll. His tender movements and his babbling made him look even more charmingly naive. It made people want to go up and pinch his mouth and ravage him. Looking at the layout of the ancient village again, it was neat and orderly. Every residence house was piled up with stones. Not far from the central plaza, there was half a huge dead tree. The trunk had a diameter of over 10 meters and was completely charred black. Other than half of the trunk, the dead tree only had a weak branch left. However, it was emitting life force, and the branches and leaves were sparkling and translucent as if they were carved from green jade. To be more accurate, this used to be a willow tree. However, many years ago, it encountered heavenly lightning, and its huge tree crown and exuberant life force were destroyed. As a result, only 8 to 9 meter tall lightning-struck wood was left on the surface of the earth. "Chief, it's not good. Quickly come and take a look." Shou Yong was pierced by an arrow. Just as the villagers were sitting on the spacious ground and watching the little guy laugh, an anxious voice came from the east side of the village. "What happened to Shou Yong?" Hearing the voice, a group of villagers immediately crawled up from the ground and ran towards the group of people who came back from hunting. Each and every one of their faces carried nervousness. "Shou Yong was shot by an arrow from the wolf village. It pierced through his heart and lungs." A red-clothed male's face was ugly, and his words carried a monstrous killing intent. He and another person were carrying a gray-clothed male with a deathly pale complexion and a weak aura. The upper half of the gray-clothed male's body was stained with blood. An iron arrow pierced through his steel armor, pierced through his right lung, and came out from his back. The pitch-black shaft of the arrow had a cold metallic luster, and was stained with blood. It was a ghastly sight. Wolf Village people? It's hard to even see their shadow for a year or so. Did you guys have some kind of conflict? A few elders arrived and asked. Father! A 7 or 8-year-old child cried loudly and threw himself forward. He hugged the arm of the gray-clothed male as tears rolled down his face. A middle-aged woman also ran over with tearful eyes. She grabbed the gray-clothed male's arm and stood to the side, sobbing softly. What are you two crying for? Don't even mention getting injured when hunting. Even death is a common occurrence. Sir Shuyong stared at them, not allowing them to cry. He was a very unyielding man. Chief, they're here. Quickly let the chief take a look. Amidst the panicked voices, a figure quickly walked over. These damned Wolf Village people! After examining Sir Shuyong's injuries, Sir Yufeng suddenly frowned. His face was gloomy and his fists were tightly clenched. Killing intent emerged in his eyes. Uncle Yong, you must be in a lot of pain. The little guy got some medicinal herbs from who knows where and smeared them on Sir Shuyong's wounds. Then he stared at Sir Yufeng and said, Grandfather, will Uncle Yong be okay? Sir Yufeng shook his head and sighed. He chose to remain silent. Chief, what do you mean by that expression? Just as the villagers were questioning Sir Yufeng, Sir Shuyong's body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The life in his eyes instantly dimmed and he fainted. Father! Shuyong! Among the anxious shouts, there were also pitiful weeping sounds. Chief, is Shuyong really unable to be saved? A group of villagers pulled Sir Yufeng to the side and asked. His lungs were pierced and his injuries are too severe. Even I am powerless. I'm afraid he won't be able to last past tonight. Sir Yufeng took a deep breath and said, Why are the Wolf Village people so ruthless? Chief, the Wolf Village people know that we obtained a Swanese precious bone a few days ago. They told this to the Purple Mountain, Thunder Clan, Great Floating Pool, and Golden Wolf Tribe. Calculating the time, they should already be rushing towards us. We were angry and asked them why they did this. Who would have thought that they would rely on their numbers to directly attack us? A black-clothed male said. What? The precious bone matter, the 4 great tribes all know. Hearing the black-clothed male, the villagers' faces changed. This Swanese precious bone contained a supreme precious technique that they had yet to thoroughly study. Chief, what should we do now? Just as everyone was discussing how to retaliate against the Wolf Village and protect the Swanese precious bone, a figure lightly floated down from above the plaza. Who are you? From the 4 great tribes? Seeing the sudden arrival of Chu Bei, the villagers retreated at the same time with vigilance. This should be Stone Village. Chu Bei slowly descended and calmly looked at Chief Shu Yufeng and said, This is indeed Stone Village, but who are you? What business do you have in Stone Village? Shu Yufeng sized up Chu Bei and carefully asked. The other party was able to float in the air, so he was naturally not an ordinary person. Chapter 408. You are sure how, right? Chu Bei did not answer Shu Yufeng's question. Instead, his gaze fell on the 2 or 3-year-old little guy's body. His burning gaze was like a big bad wolf seeing a little white rabbit. Grandpa, is he a guest of the village? How does he know my name? Facing Chu Bei's gaze, the little guy nervously hid behind Shu Yufeng. He stuck out his little head, revealing his big round eyes. Chief, Shuyong is not breathing. At this time, a middle-aged woman's panicked voice came from the side. The middle-aged woman supported Sir Shuyong and sat on the ground. Her clothes were soaked in Sir Shuyong's blood. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. The 6 or 7-year-old child next to her was wailing. Hearing this, Shi Yunfeng no longer paid attention to Chu Bei and immediately went forward to investigate. After a while, Shi Yunfeng helplessly shook his head and sighed. "Chief Shou Yong, is he already?" The middle-aged woman's voice was choked with sobs. Seeing Shi Yunfeng nod his head, her face suddenly became pale. Her body swayed and then she fainted. "Give him a proper burial." Shi Yunfeng's veins were exposed. He then looked towards the west. His eyes were bloodshot. "Wolf Village, this enmity must be avenged." But just as Shi Yunfeng's voice fell, a few robust villagers prepared to lift Shi Shouyong. A blue light hit Shi Shouyong's body. Under the blue light, the iron arrow that pierced through Shi Shouyong's wound was broken into two and then slowly separated from the wound. Then, the blue light shrunk and converged on the bleeding lung. Strange runes lit up like stars. This. Looking at Shi Shouyong's gradually healing lung and the blood that stopped flowing, the villagers, including Shi Yunfeng, were in a daze. When they came back to their senses, their faces were full of joy. Under the unbelievable gazes of the villagers, Shi Yunfeng's wound began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Chief, Shou Yong is breathing again. His heart is also beating. Is Dad okay?" "Look," Shou Yong opened his eyes. "He woke up. Is he okay?" Looking at Shi Shouyong, who had woken up, the villagers cried out in surprise and excitement. At this time, another blue light landed on the unconscious middle-aged woman. When the middle-aged woman woke up and heard the cheers, she looked over at Shi Shouyong and stared in shock for a moment. Then, she began to cry tears of joy. "It's him! He saved Shou Yong! What kind of method is that? It can actually bring someone back from the dead! Uncle, thank you for saving my father. Pihu, come, let's kneel before our benefactor." Looking at the blue light, the villagers immediately understood the cause and effect. Once again, they looked at Chu Bei with eyes full of gratitude. The middle-aged woman, together with the child, knelt in front of Chu Bei with a plop. "Get up, he's not really dead yet. This is nothing to me." Chu Bei immediately helped the middle-aged woman up. "Shi Yunfeng, did you guys obtain a piece of Swanese treasure bone? This is not something a small village like yours can possess. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, I hope you can hand it over and let my Golden Wolf tribe take care of it." Just as the villagers were crying tears of gratitude towards Chu Bei, a vigorous shout came from the south of the village. Rumble, rumble. Within the rumbling sound, a group of armored horses flew over and appeared in Stone Village. These dozens of cavalrymen were all scaled horses, and the few people in the center were riding on mutated scaled horses with a single horn, pure white bodies, and flickering silver scales. They looked extraordinarily mighty. The leader was a middle-aged man wearing an embroidered robe. His eyes had traces of golden light blossoming, and even his pupils were about to turn into a faint gold color. Arriving in front of the plaza, the embroidered-robed man's gaze fell on Shi Yunfeng. His eyes shot out two rays of golden light that were extremely terrifying. "Grandpa, this group of people looks so fierce. What are they doing here?" The little guy hid behind Shi Yunfeng and looked at the armored horses with a face full of fear. "Don't be afraid, they are here to borrow something from Grandpa." Shi Yunfeng had a kind smile on his face. After rubbing the little guy's head, he looked at the leader of the Golden Wolf tribe and his face suddenly became gloomy. "This Swanese treasure bone belongs to my village. You guys asking for it like this is no different from robbers." Shi Yunfeng stared at the leader of the Golden Wolf tribe and said in a deep voice, "You can't say it like that. I'm doing this for your sake because I'm afraid your village will be killed." The leader of the Golden Wolf tribe righteously said, "Haha, Golden Wolf tribe, you guys really know how to put on an act." At this time, a wave of mocking laughter sounded out. Another group of people arrived with an even more shocking momentum. In the distance, a 20-meter-long flood dragon was opening the way. Its scales were shining all over, and it had a pair of huge wings. A man with an outstanding horn like a golden wing ping spiraled down from the head of the flood dragon. With a dong sound, he landed on the ground with an extremely fierce aura. He's the great floating pool's Jiao Peng. Could it be that he also came for the Swanese treasure bone? A group of villagers recognized the outstanding horned man, and fear appeared in their eyes. This guy's notoriety was widespread, and he was extremely cruel. Old man, I'm not as fake as them. Don't waste my time and quickly go get the treasure bone for me, or else I'll massacre your village. Jiao Peng's cold gaze swept over Shi Yunfeng and the villagers behind him, and his killing intent pervaded the air. Grandpa, they're all so scary. The little guy pointed at Jiao Peng and shrunk his neck. Hong! Another heaven-shocking sound rang out. From the south of the village, there was a 6 to 7 meter long beast bone of an unknown vicious creature. It emitted a sparkling white radiance and quickly rushed over. On top of it stood several figures, and the one in the lead was an old man. He wore feathered clothes and a golden crown on his head. His body overflowed with strands of hazy purple gas, and he had an indescribable dignity. The ownership of the Swanese treasure bone should belong to my Purple Mountain. After all, my Purple Mountain is the closest to Stone Village. Purple Mountain's group stepped off the beast's bone, and with a flash of light, the 6 to 7 meter long bone behind them quickly shrunk. It turned into the size of a palm and fell into the hands of the old man. Obviously, that huge bone was a precious artifact. It could fly close to the ground and shrink the ground. I didn't expect your Purple Mountain to arrive before me. However, how can the ownership of the treasure bone be decided by distance? Of course it's decided by strength. Following the sound of thunder from afar, an ancient beast skin with an aura of vicissitudes carried several people into the field. On their bodies, lightning flickered, and the rumbling sound made people's hearts palpitate. The Golden Wolf Tribe, Great Floating Pool, Purple Mountain, and Lightning Clan all came. Looking at the four most powerful forces in this region, the villagers frowned, and all of them had grave expressions on their faces. Not to mention the four powers, even if there was only one power, it would be difficult for them to protect the Swanese treasure bone. After all, in this region, they were the true cultivators, and every one of them was terrifyingly strong. Bei Lang, you did well this time. However, next time, if there is news like this, just inform our great floating pool. Jiao Peng looked at the Wolf Village's people who arrived last and coldly said, Shi Yunfeng, what are you still standing there for? The lords of the four powers have all arrived. Quickly take out the treasure bone. Bei Lang's gaze fell on Shi Yunfeng, and his face was full of ridicule. The matter of you injuring my clansmen, I will settle it with you later. Shi Yunfeng looked at Bei Lang and clenched his fists, his eyes filled with killing intent. Bei Lang is right. Quickly take out the Swanese treasure bone and let us take a look. The leader of the Purple Mountain glanced at Shi Yunfeng and said. Shi Yunfeng's face revealed his displeasure, but due to the experts of the four powers, he had no choice but to walk towards a stone house. When Shi Yunfeng returned, he was holding a 2-meter-long bone in his hands. The bone was sparkling like jade, and the hazy light on the bone's surface could be faintly seen. It was truly extraordinary. As expected of the Swanese treasure bone, it actually contains the light of the great Tao. I dare say that this treasure bone contains a supreme precious technique. If we can learn this precious technique, our clan's strength will definitely rise to another level. We can even become the ruler of the desolate land. Even if there is no precious technique, if this treasure bone is properly polished, it will definitely become an indestructible treasure that contains an extraordinary killing power. Seeing Shi Yunfeng holding the big bone in his hands, the Golden Wolf Tribe, Great Floating Pool, Purple Mountain, and Thunder Clan's people all revealed expressions of excitement, and their eyes burned with passion. Chief, are we really going to hand over the Swanese treasure bone? We still haven't finished studying it. We haven't even learned the precious technique inside. Don't tell me we have to hand it over to these bandits? This group of evil people is truly repulsive. Especially the Wolf Village's shameless people. If it weren't for them, how would the four powers know about it? The villagers of Stone Village fiercely glared at the people of the Four Powers, their faces filled with unwillingness. Grandpa, are they here to steal the big bone? They really are all bad people. The little guy stuck his head out from behind Shu Yufeng and waved his little fist towards the Four Powers as well as the Wolf Village's people. Humph, I'm going to let the Willow Deity teach you guys a lesson. As soon as his tender voice fell, the little guy ran towards the thunderstruck wood that was not too far away. What are you dawdling for? Quickly hand over the treasure bone. The leaders of the Golden Wolf tribe, Great Floating Pool, Purple Mountain, and Thunder Clan all shouted at the same time. Hearing this, Shu Yufeng unwillingly and helplessly threw the Swan Knee's big bone into the air and then retreated to the side. You guys go and steal it yourselves. Chapter 409. Looking at the precious bone that was thrown into the air, the Four Powers leaders' eyes lit up, and their eyes burned with passion. However, just as the Four Powers were about to fight over it, a figure that was even faster than them appeared in the air and grabbed the big bone, then put it away. Look! He also made a move! Could it be that he also wants the Swan Knee's precious bone? However, if the precious bone is going to be taken by one of them, I'd rather it be him. That's natural. After all, he saved Shu Yong's life and is our Stone Village's benefactor. Even if he doesn't fight over it, and directly asks us for it, I believe the village chief will give it to him. However, to protect the Swan Knee's precious bone from the Four Powers' hands is not easy. Benefactor, where did he hide the precious bone? Could it be that he also has a precious artifact? Seeing the appearance of the figure in the air, Stone Village's villagers were stunned at first, then their faces revealed astonished expressions. Chu Bei's move instantly became the focus of everyone's attention. Benefactor, they are all experts of this region and are not to be trifled with. For safety's sake, why don't you give up the precious bone and let them fight over it? Shu Yufeng looked at Chu Bei and sighed, as if he was worried about Chu Bei's safety. Willow Deity, aren't you supposed to protect us? They are all bad people who want to steal the village's precious bone. Quickly make a move and chase them away. Not far away, the little guy innocently looked at the lightning-struck wood that had a diameter of over 10 meters. His white and tender little finger pointed at the Four Powers people as he mumbled. However, no matter how much the little guy begged, the lightning-struck wood did not express any opinion. That sparkling and translucent branch that looked like it was carved from green jade danced in the wind. Who are you? What relationship do you have with Stone Village? Jiao Peng from the Great Floating Pool coldly stared at Chu Bei. He took a step forward, and with a dong sound, it was as if a huge monster was moving, full of momentum. Where did you hide the Swan Knee's precious bone? The Golden Wolf tribe's leader's eyes flashed with a purple light. His head was filled with a bloody aura, and behind him appeared the image of a horned wolf. He coldly stared at Chu Bei. There's no need to ask so many questions. Just take him down! The leader of the Thunder Clan shouted and then soared into the sky. With a single leap, he reached a height of tens of meters. He raised his hand and punched towards Chu Bei. The wind from his fists was black and crackling. Lightning and thunder could be faintly seen intertwining. In the end, it turned into a black electric light, densely packed and surging toward Chu Bei. Is this the expert of the Thunder Clan? He can actually use the power of lightning. Looking at the strange runes shining in the palm of the Thunder Clan leader, Shu Yufeng was horrified. The art of thunder was a secret of the Thunder Clan. It was a rare killing technique. 1. At the same time, Elder Zishan also made his move. Purple Chi filled his entire body as runes flickered on his palm. A blazing light gushed out, turning into a purple sun that blasted towards Chu Bei. This was also a terrifying precious technique that belonged to the Purple Mountain bloodline. When cultivated to the peak, its might could shake the heavens, and it could shake the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. Since you've all made your move, I'll also do my part. Jiao Peng's face was full of contempt as he glanced at Chu Bei. His disdainful voice faded as he made his move. The power of his palm was astonishing. The runes on his left palm flashed, and a flood dragon made of light rushed out. This was a fragment of a true immemorial flood dragon. Its aura was terrifying. Seeing this, the leader of the Golden Wolf tribe coldly rebuked. The shadow of the horned wolf behind him swayed and all 10 of his fingers opened. Then, accompanied by a wolf howl, a purple horned wolf appeared in the light. Its ferocity was astonishing as it pounced towards Chu Bei. In a short few seconds, the leaders of the 4 forces made a unanimous decision to attack Chu Bei one after another, attracting the attention of the Stone Village's villagers. What a terrifying precious technique! Hearing the continuous sounds of friction and explosions in the air, the pupils of the Stone Village's villagers rapidly shrank. Benefactor, be careful. Shi Yufeng was the first to recover from the shock and shouted towards the sky. The group of villagers also reacted and hurriedly spoke out. Their voices were filled with anxiety. Don't worry. In the sky, Chu Bei nodded towards the villagers. Then, facing all kinds of precious techniques, he did not dodge. Chu Bei waved his sleeve and a gust of wind gushed out, destroying the black lightning of the Thunder Tribe's leader. How is this possible? Looking at his lightning being destroyed, the Thunder Tribe's leader's expression froze. However, before he could react, a sharp divine light rushed towards him like a blade. Chi! The blade arrived in the blink of an eye. In an instant, the divine light pierced through the Thunder Tribe's leader. Witnessing this scene, the leaders of the other 3 forces were startled. Their eyes were immediately filled with horror. But before they could recover from their shock, hundreds and thousands of sharp divine lights shot out from the sleeve of the mysterious man. Not good. We misjudged. Run! In the midst of the panic, Jiao Peng, the Thunder Tribe's leader, and the Golden Wolf Tribe's leader quickly retreated. However, the divine light was too fast. The remaining 3 forces' leaders could not dodge in time and were quickly swallowed by the blade. In an instant, the dozens of figures with vigorous auras turned into countless broken corpses. The bloody scene was nauseating and unbearable to look at. In the next moment, the air froze. In the huge square of Stone Village, there was a deathly silence. All the villagers, including Shi Yufeng and Shi Shouyong, fell into silence. Each of them stared at the figure in the sky in disbelief. From the moment Chu Bei appeared in the sky to snatch the Swan-Ni's precious bone to killing everyone from the 4 forces, it only took less than 10 seconds. My God, the leaders of the 4 forces, such terrifying existences were actually killed by our benefactor. Our benefactor's background is not small. His strength is actually this strong. Yeah, this is not a battle at all. Do you think our benefactor is the legendary Jizun? Witnessing Chu Bei kill the 4 forces experts in seconds, the villagers of Stone Village looked at each other, their eyes filled with astonishment. Willow deity, you don't need to do anything. Those bad guys were all killed by Uncle. Uncle is so strong. Not far away, Xiao Badian rubbed the thunderstruck wood. After muttering a few words, he ran towards Shi Yunfeng. Go quickly! Looking at the ground full of broken corpses, Bei Lang, who was not far away, came back to his senses. His face was instantly filled with fear and he immediately waved his hand towards the people behind him. Bei Lang, now it's time to settle the score of you injuring my people. If not for our benefactor's help, Shouyong would already be dead. As the chief of a clan in the wasteland, although Shi Yunfeng's strength was not comparable to Jiao Peng and the others, it was still far from what ordinary people could compare to. With a furious roar, Shi Yunfeng led the village's strong men to kill the villagers of Wolf Village. As people of the wasteland, they understood the law of the jungle better than anyone else. Since the grudge had already been formed, they might as well cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to avoid future troubles. After a while, the miserable howls of Bei Lang and the others could be heard from afar. 15 minutes later. Benefactor, you don't want this precious bone? On the plaza, Shi Yunfeng received the Swan-Ni's precious bone from Chu Bei with an astonished look in his eyes. It has no meaning to me. You guys can take it and continue to comprehend it, Chubei said with a calm voice with both hands behind his back. Benefactor doesn't even care about the Swanee's precious bone? But thinking about it, to be able to instantly kill Jiaoping and the others, he really doesn't need any precious bone. A group of villagers discussed. Then I'll accept it. Shi Yunfeng stroked the Swanee's precious bone and then hid it back in the stone house. Who are you? Just as Shi Yunfeng returned to the plaza, an illusory voice that was difficult to capture suddenly floated through the air and resounded in the ears of every villager. Who's talking? Hearing the voice, a group of villagers immediately looked around, but they could not find the source of the voice. It's the guardian spirit. The willow deity that protects us spoke. The little guy opened his eyes wide and flashed with a bright radiance as he stared at the scorched black willow tree with incomparable certainty. When that illusory voice sounded, he clearly saw that the willow branch blossomed with a peculiar radiance. What? The guardian spirit spoke. Little guy, are you sure? Hearing this, the villagers of Stone Village looked at Shi Hao with astonishment. Several years ago, during the lightning phenomenon, this thunderstruck tree that only had a scorched black trunk left behind descended upon their stone village. Ever since it appeared, their village had never been invaded by any wild beasts in the mountains. Gradually, they worshipped this thunderstruck tree as their guardian spirit. For tens of years, the guardian spirit has never opened its mouth. Why did it speak today? Moreover, who is the him that it spoke of? Who is the guardian spirit talking to? Could it be that the little guy saw wrongly? That voice did not come from the guardian spirit at all. Who are you? Just as the villagers were bewildered, the previously illusory and difficult to capture voice sounded again and echoed in everyone's ears. This time, everyone personally witnessed the demonic radiance of the willow branch. It really is the willow deity. We pay our respects to the willow deity. After confirming that the voice came from that thunderstruck tree, the villagers hurriedly walked up. Their hearts were filled with reverence as they kowtowed towards it, praying for it to protect Stone Village's peace. A few older elders trembled as they led the way in praying. With a devout heart and sincere words, they expressed their respect. Suddenly, a mysterious power appeared from that sparkling and translucent jade-like willow branch. It was extremely bizarre and similar to the sacrificial power recorded in the bone books when the ancient natives offered sacrifices to the heavens. It spread outwards like a ripple. Following the spread of this power, the ancient cauldron in the village resonated. The sun, moon, mountains, rivers, and the ancient natives on the cauldron wall all became a bit clearer. It flowed with a mysterious luster, making it seem even more simple and unadorned. A type of ancient aura spread outwards. Under the astonished gazes of the villagers, the tender branch swayed and fluttered with the wind. Strands of green multicolored light blossomed and crossed the sky like a divine whip or an immortal sword. Finally, the tender branch stopped in Chu Bei's direction. So this is the willow deity? Chu Bei looked at the thunderstruck tree. Even though the other party's aura wasn't powerful, because he knew the other party's origins, when facing this type of existence, he still felt incomparably nervous. This unremarkable thunderstruck tree was previously an immortal king giant who cultivated from an immortal root that survived from the ancient Great Era. Its achievements were great, its fighting strength world-shaking. Endless years ago, during the crucial battle between the 9 heavens 10 earths and the other side, without end Immortal King and Reincarnation Immortal King were exhausted to death by the other side, no one able to take over. After the 9 heavens 10 earths fell, the willow deity rose up in despair. It slaughtered its way into the other side while facing the entire world, carrying out the final battle of its life, slaughtering the other side's demonic gods until they were all scared out of their wits. After the brilliance, what followed was eternal darkness, ending in death. The other side still felt lingering fear even now. However, despite this being the case, it still didn't truly die, only its magical body was destroyed. After the passage of time, in the end, it took root in Stone Village in the form of a willow tree. Who I am is not important. As for my objective in coming to Stone Village, it is only because there is karma between us, so I wish to gift him an inheritance. Chu Bei maintained his calm, reaching out a finger towards the little guy. The willow deity was silent. Its willow branches extended, turning into a dark green chain, drawing out a beautiful trajectory in the air. It looked agile and sparkling. A void figure appeared behind the willow tree. Is that the willow deity's human form? The villagers widened their eyes, crying out in alarm. The white clothes carried specks of blood, as if a beautiful scarlet flower was blooming. Her face was beautiful, delicate, and pretty beyond compare. She looked like a woman, but she wore men's clothes, also dressed like a man. Her charm was exceptional. Under the villagers' gazes, she reached out her hand. A strand of light blue radiance extended from her palm, reaching towards Chu Bei. In that instant, Chu Bei only felt as if the surrounding space and time became still, only silence remaining. It was as if he was situated in a void space. In his line of sight, there was only the void figure willow deity produced, and the light blue radiance that reached over. Buzz, 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 a layer of transparent ripples appeared on the surface of Chu Bei's body. This was the defense propped up by Chu Bei's own strength. However, with Chu Bei's strength at the peak of level 14, he was only able to defend for a moment before being penetrated by the light blue radiance. After penetrating Chu Bei's defense, the light blue radiance continued to move forward, heading towards the space between Chu Bei's eyebrows. However, just as the light blue radiance was about to enter Chu Bei's sea of consciousness, the system interface in his sea of consciousness shook. Then, the system interface released strange runes that swept out, instantly engulfing the light blue radiance that willow deity shot over. It was also at this moment that Chu Bei felt refreshed. The oppressive feeling that originally enveloped his body suddenly disappeared, and his whole body relaxed. In the next moment, the void figure of the iron lump appeared behind Chu Bei. The void figure's appearance was that of the system administrator Xiao He. Looking at the void figure of the iron lump behind him, Chu Bei was secretly delighted. As willow deity directly attacked his sea of consciousness, this saved him the need to use Xiao He's power. The system could directly act on its own. The void figure of the iron lump slowly raised its right arm. In the midst of the buzzing sound, thousands of different shades of color rippled out in front of it, occasionally changing into various shapes. An extremely dense clear air that made people feel relaxed and happy pervaded the air. It rippled in the sky above Stone Village, transforming into a mystical scene that made people feel astonished. What is that void figure behind Benefactor? Could it be the same as Willow Deity, a guardian spirit? It can't be, this should be the manifestation of Benefactor's cosmic form. What are Willow Deity and Benefactor doing? The crowd of villagers looked at the void figure of the iron lump behind Chu Bei, dumbfounded. Buzz, 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 the void figure of the iron lump seemed to feel Willow Deity's provocation. A strange light shot out from its eyes, converging together to form a long rainbow, shooting towards the figure behind the willow tree. Chapter 410. Looking at the long rainbow shooting over, the graceful figure behind the willow tree, whose slender hands danced. Immediately, the soft willow branches overflowed with colors, and a dense light mist rose. Under the control of the graceful figure, the willow branches attacked. In the eyes of Shi Yifeng and the other villagers, Chu Bei and the willow tree quietly faced each other, and the two phantoms behind them each launched an attack that did not have the slightest lethality. In the slow speed, the two attacks intertwined. Unlike the villagers, Chu Bei knew that this seemingly silent fusion was, in fact, a contest between two supreme existences. This was the collision of their great Tao techniques. Qi La. After a long while, the thunderstruck wood that was more than 10 meters thick made a cracking sound, and the main trunk actually cracked open with a thin and long crack. The illusory figure behind it, whose gender could not be distinguished, also trembled and became even more blurry, as if it would dissipate at any time. Walala, on the other hand, the iron lump behind Chu Bei actually let out a disdainful snort. Obviously, in the contest of Great Tao just now, the iron lump's shadow had a crushing advantage. It was also because of this that Chu Bei was even more shocked. The willow deity was once an immortal king. However, such a supreme existence with great cultivation and battle prowess was completely at a disadvantage in a contest of Tao with Xiao He. Of course, Chu Bei definitely hoped that the housekeeper Xiao He would win. After all, Xiao He was his backer. Grandpa Chief, the willow deity cracked open a hole. Was it accidentally injured by Uncle? The little guy stroked the new crack on the thunderstruck wood. I'm fine. A calm voice came from the shadow behind the thunderstruck wood. As the voice fell, the shadow looked at Chu Bei, and its emotions seemed to fluctuate. Who exactly are you? Have you ever heard of above heaven? Chu Bei pretended to be calm, and his voice was calm. You came from there. The shadow behind the willow tree's words were obviously more throbbing. That's not important. Chu Bei did not say any more, and instead emphasized. I'm only here to give him the inheritance, that's all. Did you choose him? The willow branch danced, and with a luster, it pointed at the little guy. Chu Bei's gaze also fell on the little guy, and he nodded. After a long time, the shadow sighed, shook its head, and returned to the charred willow tree. Willow deity? Willow deity! No matter how much the little guy called out, the willow tree did not respond. It was just like an ordinary piece of wood struck by lightning. Uncle, did you fight with the willow deity? The little guy widened his eyes and looked at Chu Bei. Chu Bei bent down and picked up the white and tender little guy, kneading him for a while. It wasn't a fight, Uncle was just discussing the Tao of heaven and earth with him. Also, don't call me Uncle. From now on, call me Master. Benefactor, could it be that you want to take the little guy as your disciple? Hearing Chu Bei's words, Shi Yinfeng's face revealed astonishment, and he could not help but speak first. If there really was such a powerful existence willing to take the little guy as a disciple, then the little guy would definitely be able to shine in the outside world in the future. This little guy is fated with me, so he can receive my inheritance. Chu Bei nodded towards Shi Yinfeng and the other villagers, and then looked at the little guy. Do you want to be as powerful as me? With strength, you can protect Stone Village, and you don't have to be afraid of bad people. Moreover, with strength, you can also know your own background. I want to protect Stone Village, and I want to see Daddy and Mommy. The little guy pouted. Brother Xiaohong, Sister Dezhuang, and the others all have Daddy and Mommy, only I don't. Hearing the little guy's words, all the villagers, including Shi Yinfeng, had a sad expression, and their eyes were filled with pity. In Stone Village, there were more than 30 children, but only the little guy was an orphan. He had no parents, and he was raised by the village chief since he was young. It was also because of this that every villager in the village doted on the little guy, and wanted to give him as much care as possible. However, in the end, they were not the little guy's parents, and no matter how good they were, they did not have the blood affection. If you become my disciple, not only will you meet your parents, you will also become a supreme existence that can shock the ancient and dazzle the modern. Chu Bei pinched the little guy's chubby cheeks. Master, please accept this disciple's bow. The little guy jumped onto the ground, and imitated the posture Shi Yinfeng taught him. He cupped his hands towards Chu Bei, and his pair of short legs knelt on the ground, kowtowing 3 times. To become my disciple, you need to wear this ring, and go through a short ceremony. As his voice fell, Chu Bei threw the proxy ring to the little guy, and at the same time guided the little guy to drip a drop of blood into the ring. Host has successfully signed a contract with Level 1 Proxy Shi Hao. Level 15 Commodity Authority unlocked at 15%. Level 1 Proxy Gift Package issued. When the contract was signed, the system's voice sounded in Chu Bei's mind. Little guy, since you already called me Master, then Master will give you a gift for becoming my disciple. Chu Bei opened the proxy gift package, and there was a sparkling and translucent pill inside. So fragrant. Shi Hao received the spiritual pill and sniffed it. After exchanging a look with Chu Bei, he tossed it into his mouth. Soon, Sure Hao discovered the changes in his body. After swallowing the pill, every cell, every bone, and every piece of flesh in his body was being strengthened at a crazy rate. Master, what did you give your disciple to eat? Your disciple seems to have become stronger, as if I can control a mysterious energy. The little guy stretched his muscles and opened his eyes wide, and his little face was full of excitement. Little guy, quickly let us see what kind of changes you've undergone. A group of villagers revealed curious expressions. Okay. Sure Hao nodded repeatedly, and then quickly ran to a large stone mill not far away. Yahey! Sure Hao's body was very small, and his voice was still a little immature. However, he easily picked up the several hundred gene stone mill. The little guy's strength has greatly increased. The villagers' eyes were filled with astonishment, but what made them even more shocked was that the little guy shouted loudly, and a formless energy seemed to spread out from his hands. Kacha! Amidst the crisp sound, the several hundred kilogram stone roller exploded and shattered, sending dust flying everywhere. Heavens! So powerful! Looking at the stone mill that turned into countless pieces of stone, the villagers were stunned, and were so shocked that they were speechless. Grandpa, did you see that? It's this mysterious power. The little guy looked at Shi Yunfeng, and then reached out his white and tender little hand. With a light tap, a small slender crack appeared in the air. Benefactor, what did you give the little guy to eat? What kind of power is this? How did he suddenly become so strong? Shi Yunfeng and the villagers were petrified on the spot. This is the innate ability of the void. The first power he used was the power of the void. Chu Bei replied. Little guy, Grandpa is really happy for you. After hearing Chu Bei's words, Shi Yunfeng picked up the little guy and said, In the future, your future will be limitless. Quickly go and thank your benefactor. Thank you, Master. The little guy bowed towards Chu Bei, and his immature words carried gratitude. Disciple, properly comprehend this power. When you develop this innate ability of the void to the extreme, you will be the strongest existence in this world. Chu Bei smiled. NN. Xiao Budian nodded his head obediently. Master, can you tell me about my background? I want to see my father and mother. Facing the little guy's pleading eyes, Chu Bei waved his hand based on his memory, and several moving pictures appeared in the air. The first picture. The picture showed a young couple. The man was tall and sturdy, and the woman was beautiful. They were holding a baby that was still in swaddling clothes. My good grandson, come and taste the divine bird's precious blood. In the future you will definitely surpass Grandpa and your father. An old man flew over from afar and landed in front of the woman. He dipped a few drops of sparkling blood and placed them in the baby's mouth. Father, Howard is still so young. Can he do it? The young couple tried to dissuade him. No matter. Can't you see that Hao is smiling? He likes this precious blood very much. The old man was very proud. He pointed at the baby in swaddling clothes and fed him a few more drops of the divine bird's blood. The baby sucked hard. Not only was nothing wrong, but he even looked like he was enjoying it. Haha, our bloodline is really flourishing in this world. Heroes come out in large numbers. Howard is not inferior to Eir. In the future, he can also suppress the 8 wastelands and intimidate all the major races. Not far away, another old man walked over. Beside him was a child around 3 years old. He was born with polychoria. This was the strange phenomenon of an ancient saint. The second picture. This was a neatly arranged room. It was still the same young couple from the first picture. Why is Howard so sleepy? There seems to be the aura of symbols in his body. The man held the baby and frowned. You also felt it? I thought it was an illusion. He's so young, so how could there be symbols in his body? The woman was puzzled. Could it be? The man muttered. He seemed to have thought of something, and his pupils suddenly constricted. Husband, what do you know? How his body will be fine, right? Sensing the man's expression, the woman hurriedly asked. Yi Ning, there are ancient records in my clan. The true supreme experts of the human race will all give birth to sacred bones and their own primordial imprints. From there, they will evolve their own primordial precious techniques. Speaking up to here, the man's face revealed excitement. He took a deep breath and said, Among these supreme experts, the most monstrous existences will naturally have primordial precious bones, just like the golden winged ping and the true ho. The precious techniques born from these precious bones are enough to overlook the world. Calling them supreme bones is not an exaggeration. What? Could it be that Hauer is also born with a supreme bone? Hearing the man's words, the woman's beautiful face lost all color. She looked at the cute baby with eyes full of astonishment. Husband, what you mean is that in the near future, Hauer will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with archaic vicious beasts. He will be able to fight against the golden winged peng and the true ho with pure bloodlines. The woman swallowed her saliva. The man nodded. If Hao really is born with a supreme bone, then the primordial precious technique will definitely shock the world and be engraved in the history of the human race. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.